This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
So, okay, it's not here. Um, Mike,
Here.
Chris, here. Trey,
Here.
Lars,
Here.
Rachel, here. And I'm here, so we have a forum. Any introductions that we have this evening? I have one announcement that I need to make, and that is that R.K. Seals has turned in his resignation. I'll read it for you. It is with regret that I must tender my resignation from the Blanco Planning and Zoning Commission effective at the end of March 2021. We will be moving from the area in early April. My 6 years on the PNG have been very interesting and hopefully effective for our city. I know that the current commissioners will continue to do a good job, and I wish them and the city of Blanco good fortune in facing the challenges of growing small town. Sincerely, R.K. Seals. And we will miss him desperately. He's very, very good.
Yeah, he's reading the wrong.
He's reading good. Did we have anything signed up there for citizen presentation?
No, we didn't actually put out a sheet.
Okay, well then let me just ask. Do we have to read our last one? No, no. What's the law in here?
You're gonna get me in trouble one way or another, aren't you?
Better you than me.
Uh,
I'm up here and I'm not around everybody, so I'm gonna, you won't hear me there.
I'm fine with it.
Anybody can interrupt you, I'll take that. If we have any presentation other than items that are listed on the agenda, you're welcome to come and speak to us now. So the first thing let's do before we get into the public hearing is, let's look at the minutes and get those approved.
I'll assume your microphone's
The minutes from February 1st.
on. Sure.
Anybody else need one? It's been so long, I'm trying to get some time to come. Here we go. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Doc. You need another one? They all good, you need another. You have one in your pack. It's been a while, Rachel, do you remember this?
Yes, I like reviews them before games. That's before the snowstorm.
It's a real one.
That would be added to the who's present.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm in the notes. It's not the.
I didn't even catch that. I knew you were.
Okay.
Yeah, because you look at the,
Certainly. Is your mic on? New business item number one. It was my understanding, and Ms. Rollins was looking for a special permit to operate the food truck on a permanent basis. Is that correct? You want to add, well, we're looking at a permit for 1 year. Was her a question? I thought it was supposed to be long.
She,
And that's what I wanted to let you know. But she was attending the current, that's what.
no, she came in understanding it was a annual renewal.
Okay, good, all right. I wanted to get the letter for that first, sentence. And it's seeking a special permit. for
Special use.
a period of 1 year, renewal year. Okay. Just to make it clear. Are there any further discussions, comments? Once did you do yours, Rev? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second. Okay, we have, public hearings tonight, we have 3 public hearings tonight. So what we're going to do is I will read a short, uh, uh, little prep for this, so everybody know what's before us on the hearing, and then we'll open it public hearing. So the first public hearing is going to be on the comprehensive master plan. And so the comprehensive master plan update in 2020. This is the updated assessment for the city staff regarding the 2005 comprehensive master plan recommendations. This assessment does not change anything in the master plan. It only updates what has been accomplished. There are 4 sections to the update that we'll be looking at, that are in the update. The first is the 2020 survey. We had 100 respondents, and 50% of those were high school seniors. In 2016, there were 80 respondents. Not all the questions were answered by each respondent, and there's additional data that can be pulled out and extrapolated from the spreadsheet that shows each of the questions. Number 2 is the demographic analysis update. We used the 2016 review and updated any information that we knew of and read. The updated information is compiled from public sources, federal, state, local government agencies, and private sources. The third part of it was the comprehensive master plan land use update. We used the 2016 review, and any updated information is in red. And the fourth part of it was the perceived status of the city of Blanco. We used the same line items as what was in the 2016 review. And the 2020 assessed completion, we completed that by line item. And what we did was we said, we colored in yellow if there was partial progress that we deemed is made. We colored it green if it was complete or substantially complete. And with no color meant was left to be done, we found no progress. The Blanco City Council appointed both the 2016 and the 2020 committees. The 2020 committee was made up of Martha Guzman, Pamela Capps, and Susan Moore. and was formed to reassess the 2005 document and the work done on the first day. So we reassessed what was there, but nothing changed. So with that in mind, I'm going to open the public hearing, and if anyone wants to speak, Martha, do you want to say anything before we go forward?
That was my discussion about it, the questionnaire, was it available, how come I didn't hear about it? Okay, the survey questionnaire was produced in November of 2019. So, it was a while. There were the articles in the newspaper in December 2019 and January 2020. For citizens, but it was out there. It was available online. It was available to Survey Monkey and also available in the city offices in both English and Spanish. It was out there. You filled in for approximately 3.5 minutes before we closed it off and started looking at the information. I just want to make that clear. It's just, it was there for people. Now, it doesn't mean that more people can't fill it out. And that same survey that was done in 2004. Now, when the original comprehensive master plan was written, it was the same for 2005. Anybody have any questions about that?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
2005 was 16, 17 years ago.
Yep.
The world has changed.
But we used the same survey. So we would have the same categories, the same statistics to compare. You know, what do people, have people changed their minds about things? You don't know if they changed their mind if you're asking a question you didn't ask the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's predicated on using the 2004 master plan, not, I mean, it seems like it was updated.
This questionnaire was done to develop the 2004/5 master plan. It was the initial survey sent out to the public to develop that original master plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, from what I'm hearing, I just moved to town 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, but, I mean, and I just left off. And it was for, you know, you can just start naming.
Would you like to come up to the microphone so that the folks that are listening can also hear your question?
Okay. Here, let me get my mask so that I'm not shot.
I've had those shots.
You just be wounded. Yeah, my name's David Spencer. I just moved here a couple weeks ago. And I looked at the master plan, 2004, and I wasn't aware that you guys had done a 16 update and 20 with same question.
Well, in 16, I don't think they sent out any.
Well, they only had 80 responses, so.
Yeah, they must have sent out something.
Right. So I guess the comment is that it's 17 years later and the world has revolved a couple of times. And it may be that what the original master plan was developed, those assumptions and statistics and ideas have changed just due to the fact that everything changed. The demographics are changing rapidly all over the place. So that maybe the reasons or the requirements and needs for the master plan to change are becoming more apparent. Yeah, that's I've got. My question was, well, why? You answered why.
Yes. Our goal was simply to see what had been accomplished from the original master plan.
Right.
And what still needed to be done. Your comment that the whole master plan probably needs to be rewritten because time it changed is quite valid.
Well,
But that's another whole thing.
Then the comments were made in red in here. What?
That, yeah. And what's online, I think it's online, is it online? It is, yeah.
Is the updated version online?
Yeah, so what it is the original version, and then in red are the comments about the original version. Example, one of the goals in the original version was the city needs public bathrooms.
Right.
Since then, the city now has public bathrooms, so that's noted in red.
We're gonna go back.
The public bathrooms were built in 26.
Yeah. I must have missed it.
Yeah.
So any changes or update are in red. We didn't change anything that was in the original or the 2016. All we did was update the comments by red to see what any changes that we knew about.
Okay. You thank you.
Yeah. And like, in the historic district here, one of the original recommendations was we needed historic district. Those have now been developed, so that's noted in red.
The new comprehensive master plan updates, it was just recently posted on the city's website a few days ago. So I'm not sure if it's in the actual section of the comprehensive plan or if it's just in the notice section.
I didn't. I may have gotten it. Looked at it right before.
I don't know exactly where, I didn't look at the website. Miss Lori updated it. I don't know where she put it
You don't
on.
have to go and look for it, but it is in there.
In the notices,
I think a lot of people got confused about the new comprehensive master plan. That's not.
there's no changes to the foundation, just updated information.
Can you pull further down?
Yeah, the red. Can you see the red on the? That's the other thing.
The population figures have changed since the original one. If you go on down, and look into everything you could define comparable statistics. Which case we didn't write it. It was interesting, the businesses that they listed in the original one, I can't remember sure anymore.
But you might have.
But we had one, we said, we had new ones that were like real ale. They talked about real ale being the base over here.
Anybody else want to speak to the comprehensive master plan?
Does anybody that's online want to speak to it?
What about them? Well, can you ask them?
They hear you.
They hear me?
So wave your hand or something?
No one has messaged me and no one's trying to get off of mute, so I'm going to assume that no one online wants to speak. I know at least 3 of them are for another item.
Thank you. Okay, sure. Anyway.
First of all, I just want to, you know, I don't work. You did.
Tell everyone who you are.
I'm sorry.
Tell everyone who you are.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm Peter Devine, and I just want to acknowledge all the work that went into this. And, you know, I have heard from a lot of people the same thing. I'm sure y'all have heard that, you know, why didn't we know about this? I never saw a survey. And a lot of people have the comment that, you know, it would be easy to have mailed that out with, you know, from the city, water bills or certainly with the list of addresses that the city has. I'm just wondering if that was something that was considered or why that didn't happen.
It was considered, it cost over $1,000 and it wasn't.
I see. Okay. Well,
We had no benefit of it at all, so obviously.
Okay, well, that answers it.
That
I mean,
answers that question.
you know, it just seems like it's part of an ongoing problem with getting the water. I understand, you know, the paper, that there were a lot of people, including myself. I'm sorry, there were a lot, I'm sorry. That's a real. You know, I know there are people that would have wanted to participate in something like that. I do understand that basically, this one said the same thing as the other ones, that they excluded, you know, wanting fast food restaurants for high schoolers. That people want the same things, they have the same values, basically, they want to maintain a rural community. So I understand there's not a lot of difference, but I think it's more just, you know, that people didn't hear that it was happening.
Michael, what did you say? So we put it in the paper, what it was in the paper twice? And December 2019 and January 2020 was actually available in the city offices in November, starting in November, for 3 months. For 3 months. On the anchor desk.
Yeah.
Before the wall, absolutely.
My person said that they saw it in the city and asked for an extra copy. It was one copy out. And they were told that it would be a while before they could print anymore.
No. No. I mean, there was never in, that did not happen. I was in there every day. Pretty. Always copies there.
All right, I'm just.
And me, we're very glad that you came, but we want anyone, we want to answer questions for people.
Right.
There are a lot of chat out there.
There is
Isn't necessarily.
misunderstandings and, you know, from some people's point of view, the city in a lot of ways needs to really try to do better about getting the water out. Just in all of the different meetings, and we agree on that. Yeah.
I had taken a stack from down to Good Sam in both English and Spanish, and we gave them out to the folks there. And a few of them filled them out and gave them to me, and I brought them back to City Hall. But you're right. I mean, we can't put them right into their hands. I tried to explain to them what they are, and it was a lot to start them. So
Yeah.
you know,
I
you're
understand.
like, "Well,
Okay. Well, thank you. Again, I really appreciate all the work that you did.
I just want to say, anyone that did not get a survey, I'm sorry that you didn't get one. And if I had known that you wanted one, we would have done what we did. We did as much as we felt like we could without it right now. Being not necessary. So, not by us. And so I would like for you to look at the survey that's online and not only look at the survey, I would like for you to look at the rest of the master plan. Because the survey is only one little piece of the master plan. And you're going to learn a lot more on the rest of it than you would just from the survey. So I ask you to go online, go to the office and ask them for a copy. And they'll give you one, but we just need for you to look at the rest of it because it's very important that you understand where the city is and what is left out there that has not happened, that the city as a whole over several months and many town halls came together with that and had it put together. So I urge you all to read the rest of it, not just that one section.
I will add that we have made a bunch of copies and you can come by and request a copy, anyone can. You can also email the city secretary at citysec@cityofglencoe.com and she'll email one copy of it to you as well. So, more than one avenue to get it. And we did have a big rush there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think only 2 in this week so far, so.
Has anybody turned in that?
Oh, well,
No.
no.
Go get it.
That was something, November 2019, is that what you said when you did the surveys?
December, yeah, November,
produced in November?
I would. Sure.
Of 19 or 20?
19.
So this was a year ago.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm confusing because you said people have dropped some off
No, come and get copies of.
of the comprehensive master.
We've been passing them out since Tuesday.
I see, okay. You lost me there. Sorry.
But with that said, I think the climate overall has changed dramatically since November, December of 2019. I think in the city of Blanco, we have a lot more participation in a lot of things than we had in 2019. There's been home to think about a lot of things since 2019 or early 2020. So I think the involvement in the people's desire to have more information and so on, it's changed, it's evolved and changed than what it was in 2019. So not saying that there's anything wrong with what, absolutely not what y'all did with the surveys. I think there's possibilities and room for reopening the surveys. And when it comes to I would just propose that if it comes to the seniors again, unfortunately, I don't think a lot of credibility is given to the 50 senior class surveys, but it's not a bad thing. It's definitely who we need to be hearing from. I think if we went to and considered it a little bit differently this time, we went to a class, an economics class, an entrepreneurial class, and made a class assignment with that teacher in a controlled environment. And that teacher's also able to discuss the impact of the decisions on that survey. I'm not saying it outweighs anything that comes from the townspeople. It'll be an interesting take. It'll be a little bit different than the freedom to fill it out however you want to and make funny pictures along the way. It's
Well, they did have, it was a class assignment they did in
Right.
school, but I don't know what teacher supervision.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not saying we're getting much better. It's just the environment's changed a little bit now than what it was. We might get more participation, we may not. Don't know. It's I don't see.
If you do that, you need to do the whole survey, you can't mix it. But the thing is, I want us to understand, I want everyone to understand, we had 100 responses, 50 of them were high school students. In 2016, we had 80 responses. So we had 30 more people respond than what we had in 2016. It wasn't like we had a third, or it wasn't like that you had 3 times as many. We had 30 more people. So the response was less, that's true. And I hate that. I wish we had 150 or 200 or 500, but we didn't. And so we need to redo the survey, and that's what the city.
I want to be, well, that's just a suggestion. I want to be clear. Y'all did absolutely nothing wrong. There was no shortcoming or whatsoever in what y'all did. I'm just saying today, in 2021, things are a little different. Involvement's a little different than it was in 2019. So you can list the reasons. You can even throw in Snowden in that. I like saying that now. But there's a lot of different reasons that define different participation levels different than may have been in 2019. And it's by no fault whatsoever the committee who did it to try to push it through. I know that y'all, I mean, I wasn't in this capacity. I was around Blanco. I was not in that capacity, but I was aware of it. And I do know what y'all did and how you tried to push it through, but I also know that there's a lot of people who came into City Hall that had no interest whatsoever in the water bill. No, if they're a resident, no interest whatsoever in filling one.
Right. I put some on the cars that were parked down the block under the windshield wipers, and my husband said, "You are going to go to jail."
No, I'd be more concerned about the words you get back on.
We did all the things. We did all the things. But we do need to reach out. I think that is the thing here that we're going to learn, that we can't wait for the citizens to come to us. It's our job to try harder to get the information out to the citizens. And I promise you, I will try, and I know the city council will too. And so we just apologize for anyone that didn't have the opportunity to do that wanted to, and we're trying to do better with you.
Honestly, I just truly believe that if you look from based on the results you did in November of 2019, if you did a public hearing in January of 2020, you wouldn't have the same turnout that you have today in 2021 on the comprehensive management plan public hearing.
And that's not the fault of anybody else's, the climate's just changed.
Well, we'll see what the
Well,
council
and then COVID interfered.
We called it out the day, so the council, the city council assigned both of those, in 2016 and 2020, so you want to know, you need to next week to go, see how that, and see where we go.
I'm just.
And putting it in the budget.
Absolutely.
Budgeting money.
Absolutely. People work. Exactly. I think we could probably give up some of the councils.
You can have that little section.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Just a thought. I think we could find some. Budget was, everything's different. Everything was different in 2019. So there's a lot of things that have changed over this time. Talk about the impact of COVID when you're cut off of people that you go to work with every day, you're at home, you automatically get a little closer to your community. Those kind of things start to come up. People are more aware than they probably were in 2019.
Thank you very much. Yes.
If you wanted to have most of the geographic or cross-section of, my name's Andrew Sorrell. If you wanted to have a cross-section of people in Blanco, that would have, I never heard about this survey. Not once. I run a business here, I have several employees, I have 3 properties here, never heard about this survey. If you wanted to have a cross-section of people, a representative cross-section, participate, which would be far larger than what we're talking about, what I've heard about, maybe a grocery store could have gone outside because everybody's got to eat. But I don't know, not everybody checks the email, not everybody checks the city offices. There would have been several ways that I would probably try to get that out a lot more, and very simple. I can see that happen. I don't know about it. When I heard about this at the last city council meeting, I was distressed. When I heard that we were upset that 50% of respondents were high school students and 50% were in the retired population, I wondered, what about me? What about people who work for a living and have kids in the school district? What about me? I don't know. Anybody have an answer for that?
It's the people that responded. And they didn't.
How they-
They,
How
for
they-
whatever reason, they were.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for what you have to say. We're perfectly willing to do it better next time. We hope that we're going to do it one more time.
Don't say it. If y'all did not do anything wrong, times are different now than they were then.
Y'all absolutely didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to close that public hearing. And we're going to open the public hearing for the food truck. Yes, there's a.
Oh, man, it's a question. Anybody that has read it, that has noted the, stuff in red, the update. Does anybody have a comment on that? I know I've heard from one person who's not here, who didn't think it was quite accurate.
I've heard those comments, Ms.
But I
Gosnell.
haven't heard of anything specific.
Exactly. I've heard the same comments. I've got no specifics. And quite honestly, I asked them to send it to the people who need those answers anyway. But no, that's a vague opinion that is not accurate, and that's fine. I don't know why, and no follow up to it as to.
How many people in here have looked at it and read?
I was gonna say, I read, and I would not say that it is not accurate. I think you did a good job when you put on a very large comprehensive master plan to go through step by step. There are a lot of action items in there in a lot of different categories. And so I think that the bottom line is we've gotten some things done, which is great. We haven't gotten as much done as we haven't gotten done. And so we just need to pull it off the shelf and really look at it and use it as the guide it was intended to be. Because I think what happened is we went through a lot of work as a community and city to create this document. And then somehow it just kind of got shot.
and priorities switched and things happened. And so it's a great guide. It's a great document, and it just needs to be front and center in front of the commissions and the councils and the people that are working on ordinances, and because it makes sense. And then I think too, we have a lot of fragmentation that's happening because of a lot of nonprofits out there, which is good, wanting to make things happen. I said this is the city council meeting. You've got Wheels and Feet wanting to work on the sidewalks and the mobility issue. You've got another organization that wants to acquire pocket parks. You've got another organization that's working on something else, which is awesome. But until we bring those organizations together under an umbrella using that comprehensive master plan as guide, so we can build on their actions and activities, I think it'd just be easier for everybody to move the ball if we get really familiar with it and use it. Good document.
And Wheels on Feet's a good example. When the thing was originally written, Wheels on Feet exists. Wheels on Feet is banned.
I'm very sorry for this. Use this mic.
Okay. When the content method was originally written, Wheels on Feet was an active organization. It disbanded. Well, now, since the survey, it has recreated itself, and we have Wheels on Feet again. So, you know, these are all very organic things that are growing, dying, rebirthing. And we need people's comments. Because a lot of you may not have known that Wheels on Feet has regenerated.
Okay, we're going to keep the public hearing open because that's if somebody else wants to speak. So.
David Spencer again. Yeah, in listening, I got a couple of years in service, and one thing I got lectured on, schooled on, was to make things happen, you have to have a name associated with the task and a time, a date associated with that task. To move something like the comprehensive master plan together, which is what I think where the community wants to go, keep this, develop that, move forward, not stay in 1800s, but meet the 21st century head on. And I can understand getting lost in the sauce while other things are going on, day-to-day activities. But is there a committee? Is there an organization within the city? Is there a citizens group that functions and meets once a month, once a week, and people say, yeah, I'll deal with that, or somebody in the city government says, yeah, that's in my ballpark, this is what we've done. This is what's up for discussion, because nobody wants to have a meeting, nobody wants to have a committee, but unfortunately that's how human beings operate, and that's how things get done. Zoom meetings are all fun and games until the real work needs to be done, and there's a space, and somebody's raising their hand and saying, I've got it. Here's my product, or whatever. So I've got some time on the tire. Whoops.
David and Blanca, we refer to that as friend.
Every day vote now.
What Boy Scouts do.
We may need to take names. I think that's the next one I did. We can get people to come in and say, take my name, and we have something for me that's at the meeting. That is great.
I've got that name already down.
You got it, thank you. Good for you. Okay, we're going to close the meeting one more time. We close that public hearing, and we're going to open up the mobile food trucks. And we have a mobile food truck vendor requesting a permit. Michael Rollins is requesting a special use permit to operate a food truck to be located in the parking lot of Hill Country River at 806 Main Street. So Michael, you want to come up and talk with us?
The hearing is first to hear if anybody else has any comments outside of our first.
I'm sorry?
The hearing about the open hearing, public hearing is for other comments to be made about it. It's the public notice. So other people get to say something before you talk to her about
Okay.
We'll talk to her.
Okay. So
At the
we won't-
discussion point.
Everyone else to speak first? Okay, I'm sorry, I got it. Okay. Okay, does anyone have any comments?
I'd like to make a comment on the microphone.
Right, yes, sir. Please just state your name when you come up here.
Andrew Sorrell, does anybody think we have enough food in Blood? That's just where I am. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
In the food truck, I have a grill. I'll be doing vegetable, breakfast bowls, and vegetable bowls. In the morning, we'll do vegetable bowls, tacos and whatnot. And then, the lunch bowls will be the same. It'll just be stir-fried vegetables with meat and drinks. We haven't fully done a menu yet, still working on it. I do have a kind of a plan of a menu, but not.
It's breakfast and lunch, is that what it is?
Yes, and the hours will be from 6 to 2. It'll be Monday through Saturday. And as we spoke before, it's going to be on the backside, my liquor store. And there'll be plenty of parking. There's an entrance and an exit on 281 and 8th Street.
Okay, so did everyone hear that, I guess that microphone is good, because a lot of times we can't hear it.
Then, but I assume there's no other public comments. We move forward. Okay.
So I have one quick question. I'll speak really loud from here. It's gonna be on 8th Street, is that right? On the side or the? I know that I can't.
See where the trees are on the.
Just walk over there.
It'll be behind the.
It'll be right in this area here. The street, parking over here, in the wall here. Might be cut back. And then the food truck will be right here. There'll be parking here.
Woo,
So
fancy.
there's an entrance on the side and then on the other side. So it'll be right in here. This speed not, the speed will not be. And we'll be sitting right in here.
And show the parking, can you move it over a little bit? Right, so the parking will be on the other side of the.
Both sides, and they'll be parking all along the back. And my daughter is opening a store right beside mine, so. So, yeah, so I'll have that area as well.
I have a comment and a question or two.
Okay.
I mean, as long as I'm talking.
Yes, you can have.
I've known people that have started food trucks and use it as their, in other cities, they use it as their platform to develop their program and get their menu and their operating procedures down, and then they develop into brick and mortar stores. So it's a good avenue. It's an inexpensive way. And you can hit that film more quicker and not be into it as much as if you have a brick and mortar and you've got all those other concerns of having, a mortgage and utilities and all those things and or rent, all that stuff. So it's a good way for people to, say, yeah, I'm just gonna work for no time. My other question is I heard earlier discussion about asking for a permit. So are there different permit times? Are there temporary permits for a certain amount of time? Are there longer permits?
For a food establishment, we're going to grant a permit, she's up for a grant permit for a year, and then it would be renewed each year.
Right, okay, but if I roll into town for the blank, we're gonna conquer the world chili festival or whatever.
That'd be a temporary permit.
Temporary.
So a temporary is for how long?
10 days out of the month, no more than 10 days out of a month.
And that's just for 1 month.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, that's it.
Well, I have a few questions. Does anybody else have questions? No, you did, okay.
Oh, are we through with the public hearing?
No, we're
No.
gonna go on here, actually have questions.
I was wondering if the packet we received was everything you provided, because I'm still wondering if.
Yeah, I brought it all today.
Okay,
Well, the only thing I didn't have is my, sales tax, EIN, but, Jim Harris is the attorney working on my, making sure I do LLC, my DBA and all that other stuff. But other than that, I have food certificate, everything that you requested last time.
okay, so you have the training certificate, the permit from the state was conducted, the one I saw was conducted remotely. The inspection was conducted
Right.
remotely.
Yes.
Are we okay? I mean, I then we should do it for these days. Okay, I just didn't
Yeah,
know.
I'm tired of this. I was trying to do it a while back.
Yes.
I also, wasn't able to get it off the ground, so he did come in and inspect me physically, because I had this speed truck for over a year.
Okay, so the inspection you provided the information on, the one that was done remotely, is actually a follow-up to an original inspection.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, that's
yes.
no
So
question.
he's physically been in there and inspected.
Okay, so I just noticed there were a couple of items we're still waiting, and I did.
If you want me to give this to someone, this is all the items that.
It's
Well, good look at it.
Did you have any complaints that I knew you said you were?
No, there's not gonna be, it's just gonna be on.
And, the utility specifications, how are you going to get your utility?
We're gonna do the, I'm gonna actually be leasing, that from my store, the electric and the trash. But I have in here, we spoke last time, and the water, the portable water and the portable, gray water.
Is going to be the electric with the cord and have.
Yeah.
The city.
Until I have it.
Right, as in the tree by the city.
Yes.
People leave items over, that's fine.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna have it actually fixed, so.
It'll be buried.
But we'll make sure that that's approved. The other thing was the food management plan.
My visa, I'm manager.
Perfect. That's the only thing I didn't have checked off. And do you have, are you going to have trash disposal for the?
Yes, that'll be, yes,
You have that? Yes. On your.
well, that'll be through the city.
Okay.
They'll set up trash through the normal thing that everybody else does, get a bin and pick up.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Will you have a menu, like, I know you told us.
Yeah, I'm working on
Okay.
it. I mean, I have a.
And you got your sales. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
Did you get your sales?
No, that's not waiting for, Jim, Harris, finishing up my paperwork. I have my EIN. I'm just waiting for him to file with my DBA under an LLC.
And you know you can't operate the food truck until you complete what?
Yes, yes. It's gonna take me.
Well, my husband is anxious. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I've got a question about the traffic. Will you foresee a problem with in and out movements?
No, because they're, as a general rule, they should be entering off of 281 and exiting off of 8th Street. I can't guarantee that's going to happen every time, but it's no different than the traffic that's already there. I don't think it's going to.
You don't think it's going to happen?
It will add to it to an extent, but not substantially that we're going to have an issue with it.
In my liquor store, there is a really long term parking that's in there. Kind of grab and go.
Not supposed to open the bottle till they get home.
Yes. This driving the area.
Yeah, try to answer questions without incriminating yourself, okay? This is not a time for action until you come up to the, okay. No, I'm just, I didn't know where you were fixing to go yet. I was fixing to jump ahead of it.
Well, I'm glad you guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a nap during the next one. There's no action.
We'll close that public hearing. We haven't moved right along here. We have one more public hearing this evening, and it is with Higginbotham Brothers and Company. Normally not more readily known as HBC, is requesting variances for impervious cover, landscape plan, and landscape requirements. The proposed use is a retail stores, retail sales hardware and building supply business, planning to locate on North Highway 281 next to K&P property. So do we have anyone here that wants to speak to that?
Let me get them unmuted here. If I can get them to unmute.
Yeah, this is Matt at Kimley Horn.
There
Can you hear me okay?
All right, so start.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Matthew.
I appreciate the consideration this evening. I'm the civil engineer on the project. Also on the call is Corby Biddle. He's representing Higginbotham Brothers. We're looking for a variance on the site in order for the operations to continue or to be provided for the proposed site regarding parking and activity beyond the fence line for storage and equipment to facilitate equipment to be purchased and picked up in that area. So really the variance is to try to maximize the amount of operations that Higginbothams can conduct for those specific requirements related to impervious cover and landscaping.
Will you show us here what they want to do?
Oh, you got it there.
What was the question?
What is it that they want on the other map? What is it they want?
So they bought this piece of property here, and they want to put the two metal buildings, and you show that. Oh, sorry, you have to keep up with me. The two metal buildings here, this being 281, this being the side street, I can't remember the name of it. Metal building here, and this would be a enclosed metal building here. They are a lumber yard. Matthew, you're gonna have to elaborate on what is going to be utilized, what is the yard space going to be utilized for, the enclosed buildings, what they're going to be utilized for. I think they're a little bit different for each one of them, so that everybody gets a better idea of what the application is here.
Yeah, that's correct. So building 1 is going to be the retail building for actual building supplies. So you'll have patrons who can park in the front parking court area that will mainly utilize building 1 for the retail component. Building 2 is a covered area for the lumber supplies, where people can drive in after they've made their purchase. They can drive through the fence line, the gates located kind of called out with, if you're looking at the site plan, it's kind of hard to see from my screen, but it's called out as keynote 13. Those gates they can drive through and pick up their lumber and any additional equipment that is located in that fence area. But yeah, building 2 is just going to be strictly for supplies.
Okay, so let me clarify then. Building 1 being for retail, that's basically hardware, windows, doors, things of that nature that need to be enclosed and mounted well.
Right, correct.
Okay, so then building 2 would be basically just a cover with no walls, or has it got walls on it with just a drive-through? I'm trying to
Yeah,
clarify.
it'll have walls as well, with some larger doors to access the lumber.
Okay. So what happens on the ground as you go from building 2 towards 281? You have all that space. What happens on the ground then?
So if Corby's on the call, he might be able to speak a little bit more to that. But it's my understanding there'll be some storage utilized in that area, but also more room for trucks to maneuver.
Okay, so there'll be like lumber and such stacked outside as well as will be undercover or in their individual bracket.
Yeah, Corby, I saw you came off mute.
Yeah, this is Corby Biddle. Thank y'all for having us. The yard out in front of building number 2 is going to be for additional lumber storage. We do also carry farm and ranch and blinds and feeders and stuff like that. We just built one just like this in Liberty Hill. We thought this area would be a great area, and lacking building materials in the town, we thought it'd be a great idea to put one down here. So it's going to be, your basic building 1 will be, everything from tools and plumbing and electrical, paint, a typical hardware store, and then the inside the fence there will basically be a full-blown lumber yard and building supply center.
Thank you. That's the picture I needed to paint.
I just have a question about the variance. I mean, how big a variance? Is it 10 feet more? Is it 200 yards more? Is it, there are variances and there are variances? And so I don't know what they're asking for based upon what our normal development ordinances would be. How much is being asked to go beyond? Because remember when you have impervious cover, you got drainage issues, and you've got water that's not getting back into the ground to replenish our water supply. So we just turned on the tap and had nothing come out for reasons that are totally different. But it might have been a nice view into the future, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, if we aren't being really thoughtful about what we're doing every step of the way for sustainable water to our community. So when I hear impervious cover, I just wonder like how much more impervious cover than we would normally be looking at doing and what that impacts.
What is the current impervious cover that is, what's code for impervious cover for you?
Well, and I can answer some of that. So for the code with our zoning, it's maxed out at 70%. But the existing conditions of the site, it's already what I would argue to be completely impervious. There's a base, kind of crushed granite base laid down over that entire area where the previous owner or users were using that as a construction staging area. So what we'll be doing when we come in with our improvements, we'll finish the base off by putting on asphalt, actually making it a more sustainable drivable surface. But we can provide some landscaping in between the areas of the proposed drive and the building, or the proposed drive in the parking area where there currently is decomposed granite. So if anything, we would be reducing the overall impervious cover after we develop the site.
I was out there last week and I had my husband right out there and we went through those things that did not enter, but we entered. And we drove around that entire area. I noticed on the back fence that there were hay bales and other things to slow down and stop the water. Can you address that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully heard your question. Apologize for that. It's just a little quiet on my end.
But when I was out there last week looking behind on the backside of your property, there's a fence back there. And along that fence, there are hay bales and other things that's fencing to stop the water, the wash. Can you address that?
They don't actually own that property.
But their drainage is going to go there.
That is true.
So now my question
Yeah.
is to the drainage.
Yeah, I guess in the way that we're approaching it is that we would help the drainage by reducing the impervious cover. Even though we wouldn't be reducing it by a whole lot, it would still be, we wouldn't be adding to the drainage in the existing conditions. So, I'm not 100% sure what happens a few hundred feet away from our property line. But right now we were just looking at the drainage patterns, which will match. We won't really change the overall drainage patterns, and the impervious cover, which will be under. So we won't be negatively impacting anything downstream of us by developing the site.
Well, right now it's all caliche, and I know someone else cleared that off, and it was used as a storage place. I mean, I understand that. My question to you is, right now it's all caliche. There's no shrubs, there's no trees, there's nothing there. But when you put two buildings, one is going to be 100 by 140, and the other one's going to be 100 by 100, and then you put your parking lot on top of it, which I assume is not going to increase you from your drawings and what I read in here. So you will not be reducing the impervious cover. You will, if anything, you will be making it less absorption. Can you guess that?
Yeah, I guess we could talk more with Will if there's some coefficients that we should assume for caliche. It just seems that type of material is pretty impervious in order to handle the type of traffic that was there before. But it might be, up for interpretation or just something that we can discuss a little bit further, what the actual infiltration rate for what's out there would need to be considered to be.
So as a general rule, the decomposed granite, the caliche base is considered impervious. So you're not increasing, that's good. That's what you want more of that. The building itself is what creates, stops the absorption, or a parking lot of asphalt or concrete. So as long as you minimize that, there is a ratio, and I have to look at what it is, but the ratio of percentage that you can have that is covered by acreage that is covered versus what I mean covered, meaning a building, asphalt, or concrete versus having caliche, grass, decomposed granite, all being considered the same thing.
Yeah, when he says right now it's 100%, it's because there's nothing there, but he's going to put things on there that's going to make it more intense.
But I think Matthew, I think you're trying to maintain a 70%, right? You're going to reduce the coverage by 30% in two buildings in the parking lot. So,
Yeah, right. Because the way the site is now, I mean, it's all of that decomposed granite. We're going to put in our improvements, but we're going to have some areas of landscape opportunity. There's some areas between the edge of our parking and the edge of that proposed drive that kind of runs off-site in that easement that we can put in some landscaping and reduce the overall impervious cover. The difference between like a roof and pavement, there's really no difference in the infiltration rate. And a lot of times we consider that decomposed granite to be just as impervious as the asphalt top would be. So in our minds, we wouldn't be increasing any type of runoff with our improvements. So, you know, and we might actually just reduce it slightly. So I don't know if that.
However you do that, I'm sorry, but however you do that, there's going to be a lot of water runoff anytime that we have a major rain, if we ever get rain again, which I hope we do. But when you do that, we do know that there is the brewery, which is right behind it. Can you open that up a little bit, Trey? You can see the brewery and their drainage and their sludge ponds right behind that. I mean, the water has to be going back there now. I'm not an engineer, but when I look at that and I see that all that water is going, and you have said it's going away from 281 to the back, what is happening to that water?
Yeah, all we can do as an engineer looking at, you know, what's happening to the water, all we can do is compare existing to proposed. And right now the site drains away from 281. It drains to the area that you were just describing. So if that was, I don't want to say if that was acceptable, but if there's no major issues with the type of runoff that anything downstream is experiencing right now, then in theory, we would not be creating any sort of impact with our development. Now, if there is some issue with what's going on downstream, then I think that's a separate conversation, because again, we're not going to be increasing the issue, increasing the runoff with our development. There might just need to be some other form of mitigation that could be downstream or something to account for an existing problem. But with our proposed development, we wouldn't be adding to the problem. And so, you know, that's basically all we can really look at for a specific owner's property or development of their property.
Matthew, if I may, just for a second here, Ms. Swan. This up here is the property. I know where you drove in back here is different. All this right here is not their property.
But they're going to drain that property, Will. I mean, that water is not going to stay on their property.
I know. That's why I'm going to explain the next part.
Okay, good. I'm hoping.
The site plan review, our engineers had already reviewed this previously for its previous use. And it is designed to drain this way and this way. This is all a lower area. Everything's designed to drain like this way.
What about those sludge ponds right there from the?
Those are higher. They're built up higher than where this drainage goes. And it's been doing that for a number of years now. So as it pertains to their property, typically, they have to worry about meeting their impervious cover restriction. This here has already been engineered to have the water go this way. Our engineer, well, a previous engineer submitting his plans to our engineer for review and their recommendations. If he's still going to have to go back through the site plan review from our engineers as well as part of the drainage. And the site plan engineer review, our engineer is going to have the water go. How about that? Certainly the way.
I've got a few questions about the site plan. That's already you're talking to Susan.
I don't know. I'm still talking about drainage.
That's what I'm talking about. Sure. Number one, what is the elevation across this property? There's no contour marks or anything else on the version of the site plan we've been provided here. So there's nothing to indicate the ground, the runoff direction, and it doesn't give any idea of grade or elevation, other than the fact that there's something like 589 feet benchmark off of some road that doesn't exist in Blanco. So I'm curious what you use for your elevations figures. And also, what app has you on the east side of 281? The next one you gave us had you on the north side of 281. I was just kind of curious about that. But basically, with the runoff, what is the elevation across the property?
Yeah, so the existing elevations on the, let's see, south southwest corner of the property, which is kind of that corner where our driveway connects to 281. It's a 1466 contour, and then it drains, in existing conditions, drains from that corner to the northeast corner, where the contour elevation's at 1456. So it's about a 10-foot fall from corner to corner.
Okay. And what about the roof runoff? Will that
I think the roofs are just pitched in the middle, so it'll be split. But again, once it hits the ground, it'll continue in the direction it's going today.
So you're basically planning it's going to run across the whole parking lot and drain off the back. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. Yeah, we're going to design it to continue that same flow pattern.
Okay. One of the items on your site plan reference adhering to the San Antonio requirements, and I didn't know if that was delivered on your part or not, because the other one said City of Blanco requirements. So I just wanted to point that out to you. I'm assuming they're all going to be City of Blanco, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that might have been a typo, but I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Okay, and what's the purpose of, I think it's a berm, I can't really read it, but it's that curved item that goes across the middle of the parcel from north to south?
From north to south?
Yes. Is that a berm of some sort? I couldn't read the number, but it looked like it was some sort of a berm.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where, so we do have a concrete pilot channel that runs through the site to help with the drainage.
Okay, and my last question to you is, when did you purchase the property? Did you purchase it in 2021?
No, ma'am, we purchased the property in 2020.
Okay, because in 2020, our landscaping ordinance was updated. And one of the purposes of updating it was to provide for any industries along this property to have a barrier, a screen from cars, et cetera, going by, and also to visually separate it from the activities on the property. And I don't see anything here indicating, I mean, I know that you want it all waived, but were you going to do anything about visually separating the activities on the property from the highway? And I'm also asking about dust, because I've been a lot of there's been dust and it flows right onto the cars if there's no landscaping or other acceptable screening to prevent it from getting onto the cars. Did you have anything?
In the front of the property on the right-hand side, where the yard will be, there is a screened fence. We're going to leave that screened fence up and just open up the fence where the parking lot is, where you can see building 1 in the parking lot. And then we'll have landscaping on the left-hand side of building 1 and landscaping and a pole sign across the front there.
What kind of landscaping? Because technically you should have, what, 10 or 11 trees to be replaced because the property is so open, and the point is to get more canopy on and along the highway. So my understanding would be 10 or 11 trees that you would under ordinary circumstances be looking to have along that property line. What kind of landscaping did you have in mind to substitute? Or is that what you wanted made entirely with no landscaping at all, correct? So you could just use the whole area for storage?
Inside, I'm having a hard time. I'm getting a lot of background noise from you. We're going to have landscaping around the building 1 and across the front of the property. But the yard itself will be screened by the fence that's currently existing.
And what kind of fence is that? Is that the chain link with the screening on it?
It's chain link with slats in it, with colored slats.
And that's it? That's what you're planning to have on the highway?
Yeah, just for that half of the property where there's the supply yard portion. And I think for the actual parking court, it would likely be sod with maybe some shrubs.
But nothing about tree mitigation. Okay, I guess I'll take that.
Right.
I want to ask you a question because I love you. But you move past sometimes, and I have to break it down into pieces too. So as it pertains to the screen fence, screening, that's already in place. Right? We agree? Are you okay with that? I want to separate the two because the next part is the landscape.
Okay. Say that again, I didn't hear what you said.
The screen fence facing 281 is already in place. And that's what's required to be in place.
Which is a chain link fence.
Chain link fence with the slats going through it so you can't.
A 6-foot chain link.
Right, it's what's there with the slats so that you can't see what's behind it. Got the slats already in there. That's acceptable screening.
And that's halfway across the property?
It's all the way across the front.
Okay, so that would be the justice. Okay.
Yes. That's why I was trying to clarify the one so we can move to the next. Then you're talking about the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So they are planning to landscape all around the parking lot, in the front of the building, and along the side of the building. But determine what that is. So your question is, or they haven't said what that landscaping is. So your question is what? That pertains to landscape.
My question is, what's the landscaping along the highway? Because the citizens I've spoken with want the charm of the build of this area to show through. And having industries there and nothing visually rural, to me, kind of goes against what the citizens I've spoken with have asked for.
Okay. I'm not arguing, but I want to counter you.
Okay.
With obviously, if there's already a screen fence there, put landscape up, the only thing that's going to be seen is landscape that's going to be seen from the road because you have a fence, screen fence. There's going to be trees that are taller than the fence. Right?
You can't put them outside the fence?
No. That's in my easement. You can't have that. That's a city easement. No, they're going to be on the inside of the fence. The fence is screening everything off. You can't see what's going on in there.
So what's the point of the landscaping ordinance? If it's not to keep the moisture on the property in acceptable format and to make it visually pleasing and to provide shade and to provide, just the amenities as far as having other vegetation instead of a flat cut surface.
Right.
What's the point of having a landscape?
No, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't have some landscape. I'm not arguing that. There should be. We just you gotta get the visual in this.
So nothing's gonna change.
If they came out and they said, if they responded to you, yes, we're gonna put shrubs all along that fence, you'll never see them.
Right.
But they're there. That doesn't have the visual side of it.
So you're not gonna see their store from the road either?
It'll be sticking up above the fence, but yes.
It's only building one, not building two.
Yeah, I was gonna say, building one.
So the privacy fence is only along half of the property.
Correct.
This is what I was wanting to far as the
Yeah, so basically, I mean, that would all be open if the building won't get to be seen. Privacy fence on the south, right there.
Are you with them?
No, I'm not.
But
I'm waiting for
I need someone to help me, because I thought you said was leaving this side open. Either way, that's what we need to clarify where the screen is.
And also, the UBC code says on the streetscape, that along all arterial and freeways, at least one canopy tree for every 40 feet of frontage will be installed. So are you going to install canopy trees across the front? That's what the UBC code calls for. Yes.
Right. That's part of the variance request.
So they're asking for a variance from that. That's where y'all get to make the important big dollars. You get to decide to approve or deny that variance. There's more than one variance. Let's try to get through one. So
Okay.
Now,
Sure.
we're kind of moving ahead of ourselves. We haven't gotten to the point where we've opened actual for the commissioner's discussion on
No, this is just a discussion.
We actually, in my opinion, should be just hearing all of anything that anyone has to say about it. Then close it and go on, and close it and let go on to our. I agree with you 100%.
Okay, my hope that we're already there.
No, we just kind of evolved into it. We should be closing the public hearing.
We're not.
And
Okay,
then-
so let's,
Wait. Well, you have a public comment on this.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's what this is for.
Hello, my name's Jim Bundy, and I'm the new owner of PNC Supply. Here next door neighbor, selling everything that HBC sells or can sell. And I will tell you that this property line here, it does not drain from here to here. Because if you drove in there, you know, you went down a ramp about 3 foot going south. And the water stands in here. I just had a truckload of dirt brought in here, and the guy spreading it out was sinking in the ground. He said, it's still too wet, I can't get in there. Water stands right on this fence. And if they pitch this rooftop this way, this is gonna become just a mush pond right here. And also, if we're talking about granting variances, there's a lot of my property there next door that is still natural, trees, grass, what have you. Kurt Phelps told me that because of the ordinances, he hasn't developed that any further. It would be great to have some extra storage barns and stuff, but I'd have to wipe out a bunch of oak trees and, you know, I don't care to do that. But I would ask that if you're gonna grant a variance for my neighbor to bring in his big, you know, lumberyard, storage buildings, that you also grant the same to his neighbors so that I can add additional storage there as well.
Did you have anything else? Yeah, I don't think there's anything else.
I think that's one comment.
Yes. Pardon me?
Yes, Connie Barron. And I would just say that I think this gentleman makes a good point, and it's hard if our ordinances are not what they should be, we should be looking at doing what we need to do with our ordinances. But when you grant variances, you don't have an ordinance. And if you give a variance to one person, you give a variance to everybody. Or there should be a really good reason why that variance is necessary. And I'm still not clear on what all the variances are that are being asked. But when there are multiple variances needed to develop a piece of property, then it sounds like, it's not like just one little variance. I want to have my building 2 feet farther away from the fence because there's a really good reason. It's I want to develop this in a way that doesn't go with the development plan that's part of the UDC ordinances for the city, and that's a very different thing. So I don't know what all the ordinances are that are being asked for, but I just always am cautious. And again, when you are granting variances routinely without really good reasons, then we have no UDC. We have no ordinances. There should be a really good reason, and it should be rare and seriously warranted. Others should be able to develop their land any way they want it. That's just my comment.
I just want to say one thing here. It says in the UDC code that a site plan may not be approved unless the proposed development will not result in additional identifiable adverse flooding on other property. And we've just heard that it's going to have an impact on the property right next to it.
It's currently having, it could be repaired, I swear.
Well,
The owner have that thing.
That's fine. I'm just saying, the UDC says that we have to protect against that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the job also of engineers to protect that as well. So whatever may have happened during that time, that it was designed to go one way and, you know.
You just said that our engineer looked at it and passed it, so they need to look at it again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that something didn't happen, that somebody changed the drainage in the process of storing equipment or draining equipment across it. I don't know what happened. I haven't seen it. But yes, absolutely. They are responsible for making sure that happens. Ms. Reddick has a comment. And then we,
Can I say something, Will?
Sure. Go ahead.
You know, currently there's about a 2.5 foot drop off from the center of that property going south towards CNS, and we're going to have to fill that in and build it up to make it flat. So it'll prevent a whole lot of that runoff toward the next door neighbor that currently has that he's currently getting. So as we build that up, it's going to keep all that from going toward him, because we've got to get it built up to get it flat, because there's a little bit of a drop off that runs east and west on that property, right down the middle almost, or actually on the south third of that property.
If you build it up, I don't see it keeping the drainage off of it.
That's going to channel it back toward the northeast corner.
Okay,
So definitely, we have to have an additional drainage study, and we need.
we definitely would anyway, both engineers, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going and I'm thinking back to long ago, 1999, when all this started. And I want to support what Connie said. The variance is the last thing you should ever do. It's not something for everybody, and it should not be given just to everybody. And so you need to look at it and see that all it does is open the door. It takes away your rule, and you have no rule anymore. So the variances should be a no-no. And this started, back in that, before we had the EDC, before we had the zoning, all this stuff is that keep that in mind. They're trying to keep frontal going code. Okay.
Thank you, Rita.
My name is Deidre Devine, and I'm gonna just echo what Greta and Connie just said about variances and when it is we should give them. There should be a specific reason. There's a tree blocking where my sign can be seen or something like that, that it should not be a wish list, I don't feel. I also just, I would certainly want to take into consideration that a lumberyard and hardware store is necessary right next door to the one that is a locally owned business. I think that's something that we really need to consider when we say we want to support local businesses. And my third point is if you did decide to grant some of these variances, I mean, the idea I had when they said that the roof is just going to run off is to require some rainwater collection from those roofs, and they can use that to water the canopy that they're going to put along the front deck. That's all I got.
Good idea. Thank you, Dina.
okay, are there any more public comments?
Does anybody else have anything that they want to get up and say?
If not, we actually need to close though.
Ask them that. Okay, I do it, Will. I go home and get the same kind of directions from my husband. Yes, sir.
We talked about this beforehand. And you and I both screwed it up still.
Okay, so now we have to go to consider, discuss, and take possible action on the comprehensive master plan. And so, Kelly, if you would go back put this out on the, something with master plan, so that we have, the things that are in the master plan.
I just had one comment on that. I know we talked about it a lot already, but the issue of the 50 students, I know it's been brought up a lot. But like Will said earlier, they're the future, so their input to the survey should be counted. Because I heard a lot of like, once the student graduates from Blanco High School, they move out, they want to get out, and they never want to come back. And I think that we should be trying to make it so they want to stay. And that's just my concern.
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive master plan estimate.
All in favor? Any comments before we do that? Any more consent discussion? All in favor? Aye. Good, that's unanimous. Well, city council will have this next, at their next meeting in April. So if there are more comments or more questions, please have everyone is invited to come to that and have it. Where are you going to have it next? You know?
I don't know. Jim of the Hills.
Jim of the Hills. So if it's at Jim of the Hills, there'll be ample room for everyone to come, so.
I just need an official confirmation.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's go to the food truck. And we can have discussion on the food truck. I think that I've heard a lot of people that want this food truck and that it will be good for that area.
I just want to clarify the parking on it.
Yes.
I actually have a little map that I do.
Right, I didn't draw.
She's got a drawing that's easier to understand.
Are you planning on your parking being over here by your driveway window?
No,
It's on the
there's actually a lot of room back there.
other side.
Oh, yeah, our trees. But, there's a lot of.
This is where I was thinking you probably have it.
A lot of area right back there. This is all, So it's nice.
And the truck itself is gonna go
Right here.
right here in the middle. Okay, that's basically.
Well, I have a question. We got any response from neighbors?
No, sir, we've had no responses or requests from anybody.
I let lady that lives in the complex behind.
Right.
She was sitting there.
So I do have one more question too. So your plan, you're not planning anything for the night. It's just the breakfast.
Yes, this morning, yeah.
62.
Yeah.
So what about like special events here in town, like that, stuff like that? Are you gonna stay up longer? Are you gonna?
Probably not. I work a lot of hours. Probably not. 62 is, I think it's more time for me.
We have a permit, she said 62, so if she don't change that, she's going to have to come back.
Could she get a temporary for the hours?
Yeah, sure.
If she was gonna
Come back and ask for it, sure.
Said you didn't want breakfast.
Yeah.
What's that?
Get a temporary permit.
And what kind of food is it?
Breakfast bowls, it's gonna be grilled and, grilled on a flat top. It'll be vegetables and meat. It's not gonna be greasy hamburgers. And French fries or anything like that.
So it's gonna be a very limited menu or pretty limited?
Yeah, I will have probably a vegetable known to man in there and.
Vegetarian.
I will vegetable, but
there will be some meat in there, but yeah, it's not gonna be a lot of greasy foods where I have to do a lot of work with fats and grease and uh, what do you call it, garbage.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank
That kind of food.
I make a motion that we approve the food truck.
I'd like to make an amendment to that. Okay, I'll make an amendment.
As long as you're on the same page as me, then go right ahead.
You need to meet my husband, we're probably not on the same page. I would like to amend that motion to approve the permit for the truck. But I would like to make sure that the permit application is complete and all documents will be submitted to the city manager before the truck is in operation. In addition, I would like for the permit expiration to be 1 year and that it must be an annual renewal and not an automatic renewal as shown in the lease.
Yes.
Does anybody second that motion? Everybody in favor? Everybody in favor?
See, I told you we're on the same page. That's one time, mark it down. Mark it down.
Yeah, you know what to do.
Once you get here. So.
Okay, so now we have one more issue we have to discuss, commissioners, and that is the HPC.
President's comments about the landscaping. I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think I'll take down that strange things, get some trees in there. Let there be some place where we have some further cover for the water can drain. We were pretty hard on Tractor Supply, if you remember, when they came in for their proposal, and we really, I think, hit them pretty hard with the landscaping part. And I think, I'm completely guessing the very I'm against the variance.
Is there a plan development with this thing? We're not setting anything up, and there again, as he said, we were really hard on that.
Well, there's a couple issues that have to be addressed. And we can do a PDD if that's what y'all. I don't think it requires a PDD. I think because we're not extending utilities to them, we're not extending anything, they're not adding anything that's not already there. Everything's already there. So that's where Tractor Supply gets a little bit different, is it had to make a different approach. There's a road off of a textile approach already there that they'll be entering off of, not directly off of 281. There's a turn lane already there. So I don't see the requirement for a PDD necessary.
I want to see the street. I don't see the turn lane.
The middle. Yeah, see, here's the center lane for turning left and right. It's already there, but you don't have it fixed on. I mean, it's the Tractor Supply.
Could we have Jim point out his trees to us here?
Go back, is that a lot view? Okay, so the property line is right in here. So all of this is still natural trees. My parking lot ends about maybe 40 feet from this property line. Actually, maybe closer to 60 feet.
So it's not on, so it's not on the other side.
My property line is here where the fence is. That's right here, it's where 18-wheelers get stuck because they sink into the ground.
And that's 281, right? So
So it's hard for me to get around this side of my building, you know, it'd be great if I could, you know, bring in a bunch of field dirt and lop out some of these trees and extend my parking lot on out this way, but I don't have the pockets of HPC's yet.
And nobody came in and scrubbed yours off, did they?
And nobody came in and scrubbed mine off. Like, if you're sitting out there under those oak trees having lunch, it's pretty nice.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, I had another food truck. I had another question. Totally different question, that no one has brought this up yet. But I just heard the gentleman say that they were going to have a lumber yard. The UDC code does not allow a lumber yard in a commercial district. It has to be industrial. So why are we not started there? Well, right now, they can't even put that.
That's true. With that said, that you have to take consideration the K and Z property that's already there.
Put grandfather in.
No, once it's sold, it's no longer rented. So now.
Did you change theirs?
No,
But you didn't question it, so.
I didn't have anything to do with it being sold. When it sells, the grandfather goes away from the zone.
Well, you know, I don't, we have A&C that has been here for years, and they are a local company.
Right.
But what we're talking about is a new project that's coming in. And for some reason, there was a storage yard there before that had a special permit, even though, and actually, if you pull that map up, I don't think that's commercial, I think it's MX.
It's in there.
So it isn't even commercial, but you can't have a lumber yard, nor can you have a storage yard in an MX or a commercial district. So I'm not sure why we ever have to get past that first.
Well, what happened there before was before me. I did not process that. And I was not responsible to bring it to P and Z there. What happened?
But in here, you read this, and in here, they're asking for a variance because it was a storage lot before, and that has no bearing on what it needs to be going forward.
Okay.
If I buy an old house, and you come in and say you can't live there until you update it, well, I said, well, whatever, I have to update that house before I can live in it. They're gonna have to fix this property or change the zoning in some way.
Well, they're going to definitely fix this property. That is incumbent upon them to fix the property. And use the drainage issue, that is absolutely incumbent upon them to do so. There's not even enough discussion. That's their job to do.
No, well, you're right, I have no comment.
I had, Loris, did you have a comment?
I just said, and landscaping.
And landscaping, yeah. The variance is a request. Don't misunderstand. I have to play devil's advocate. If you're for the variance, then I gotta be against it. If you're against it, then I gotta be for it. That's what we're supposed to do here. So on the zoning, again, we have to think about first, they would have to do a zoning, or y'all have to decide that they are required to have a zoning variance. Because we're moving from MX. MX is not going to be anymore once we get this done. So do we require them to file for a variance on the zoning? And it'd be very hard to deny a variance for the zoning when we have to allow an existing one to fill the same shoes. That's existing? Yes.
And the red is MX.
That's correct, yes.
MX is what? Mixed use.
We're almost through with the new, we're working on a new zoning map, but we're not there yet. We're very close, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, the only piece of commercial is this little yellow here, which is the lube. Yeah, especially.
I just want you to know that we can't, when we're talking about storage yard and we're talking about lumber yard, we're gonna have to make some decisions on that before we go forward. So the zoning is a problem, the drainage is a problem, I have a big problem, and they can do some things with the drainage, they can do some stuff with the parking lot design that will help with drainage, by putting in curbs and putting in, it talks about that in the UDC code, we can bring that up if you want, where they can put raised areas inside that parking lot, which will, and put trees in there and curbing, which will help with the drainage, but the drainage is a big problem here. And you can say all you want, that's the way it's always been,
That's not what I'm
but
saying.
it's not the way we go forward.
That's absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it was engineered by a civil engineer prior to. It was reviewed by our engineers. Somewhere along the way, something changed, whether one, both engineers missed something in the groundwater system that's underneath that, or someone in the process of that being used as a yard, went and dug a big hole back there to let water slope out of somewhere else. One of the two happened. I don't know what it was, didn't see it, but there's definitely a problem there that has to be fixed, and that can be addressed by their engineer first, their civil engineer first, then will be reviewed by our civil engineer.
Yeah.
Again, but that would have to happen regardless. Our civil would have to review that one more time regardless. Whatever goes in there, anytime it changes, our engineer has to review it again.
I'm hoping to have a real hard look at it this time.
Well, if Kinder Morgan's engineer was the one who missed it, I wouldn't be surprised. Pardon my speaking out of turn.
I just think that we have a lot of work to do here, and let me just read what they're asking to be. They're asking to dismiss the canopy tree as well as screening of the parking area required along the proposed development. They're asking to dismiss the minimum landscape percentage and design requirements for the proposed site. And they're asking to dismiss the requirement of landscape plan for civil plan submission. I'm not for any of that, folks.
Then let's know that one of you, are any of y'all for it?
No.
Then there's really not much discussion left to have.
Well, I think they can come back. I think they can come back. Fine.
Sure, but
we're not going over the plan. We're talking about what is their variance. We approve or deny the variance.
Well,
Because if you're denying the variance, then their current plan is incorrect, so they're going to have to modify the plan. So we need to address the variance and the variance only, because that has a reaction that has to happen afterwards. So if we address the variance, we put it back in there for us, come back to something else. The only question without outside the variances, it's not being addressed in current variances, is what do we do about the zoning that's there now?
Well, if we have to make a variance, I would rather make it on a local company that's been here for years and years and years than I would a new company coming in. So I mean, that's, you brought that up, not me. I'm just going to respond to you in that way. So I just want to say that, but the limitation that they're saying in here, the limitation of amphibious cover will hinder the operation of the proposed development and cause undue hardship. Whatever they do to improve this property in the long run enhances their property and their business. So that's not a valid point to me. I've been in business too long. The more money they put into that property, the more they're going to get out of it. It's money, it's cash up front, but it's not throwaway cash. It's not expensive and all that. So, I mean, what they're saying in here, in my opinion, where they propose development not to increase the site impervious cover percentage, nor the sheet flow runoff, they need to address that. I don't condone what was happening in the past, but I don't condone it going forward.
We're not. But KFC has not put in a variance. We don't have anything to discuss there. The only thing we have to discuss that involves K and C
has to do with the zoning for the future of that area. So,
I think we should repaint the others tonight.
well, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just simply saying, we have to address, are we going to extend our zoning to be encompassing of this in the future, so it's gonna be okay, we require them to come in with the zoning variance request? Right.
My concern is if we decide to embrace the HPC concept, and if we feel it's unnecessary for them to follow our landscaping ordinance, then why don't we follow the section 511-32, which allows mitigation payments, and have them pay instead for all the items they are not doing to their property. And I want to toss that out there because there's a formula in the ordinance. If an applicant seeks a variance, blah, 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 he bears the burden of demonstrating the application, blah, 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 will result in unnecessary hardship. To me, I'm not saying unnecessary hardship. I would like a definition of unnecessary hardship. If I'm going to understand this, but otherwise, I wanted to just toss out the concept of mitigation payments in lieu of preservation or planting if we decide to embrace them and to allow these variances.
Well, I agree with you, except that clause works great when you have big trees to remove. Because it's prohibited of someone actually wanting to pay to have it done. From the landscape part that's not there, it's really not a very big penalty for them to.
But you still have to calculate the canopy and deduct the credits that they have, and then there's a fee if we do multiply. I'm just saying, let's let the town get something out of it if we decide to go that way.
Well, that's up to y'all. That's, again, y'all haven't decided one way or another if you want to accept the variance or approve the variance or deny the variance. So once you get to that point, then we can talk about the fee that's in there. But that's y'all's decision to decide whether or not you want to accept or approve the variance that they're asking on the landscape and such. Right now.
Well, my issue is with the impervious ground cover, and many years ago, I worked with a road crew, and when they create things like that, they set them up basically so that they are watertight. They're not totally watertight, they're not like pavement, but water doesn't, it does go into them, but it's not like dirt. And they work to minimize. They work to make it like that. And that's why it's called road base, and that's why it's under the pavement. It's there to protect and to keep it sturdy, solid. So in my opinion, I would think that they would have to come back with some kind of landscaping that shows us at least some percentage of some percentage of pervious. So where we can.
I agree with you, but while we may not agree on whether or not it be composed granite or caliche base, road base, whatever meets the requirements for absorption of water, it is an approved substitute. So we don't have to like it, but that's what's approved currently. That's what's acceptable and approved. That does. So to go back to support what you want to say, the part about the variance being requested on because they're not asking for a variance on impervious cover. They're asking for a landscape variance. So
that would to me be part of, if they provided more landscape.
So you want to be.
They're saying that variances will maintain the current street flow and also reducing the suspended solids. So they are talking about that.
Okay. So, but the thing that you want to deny the variance.
That's what we're discussing.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
So we deny the request for variance.
I second. Any more discussion? Yeah, all in favor?
Okay, so the variances are denied. Now, one other issue to discuss, because they're going to have to come back, is about the zoning. How is the commission going to handle the zoning? We know we're working on a zoning map in the future. I can't decide that. y'all need to discuss, and decide how you want to handle the zoning. Do you want to require them to come in with a zoning request? K and C currently does not fit in the inmates either. They had a grandfather. The grandfather technically goes away on anything once the property sells or changes on.
Actually, the property has some of the business.
Kirk's Lawn Salon.
Good.
She said that about 15 minutes ago. And that's true. That is true. The property is, it still falls to the grandfather on the property. But the property is still not zoned as, it's still zoned MX. The business is not MX requirement.
So we've been going through this for how many years now on MX and commercial?
5 years.
Yeah, and I'm still not really, I mean, to me, it was archaic, it was all worked up over in that. And I know that if we do away with it, it defines more thoroughly what we want to be able to do. So this is going to be commercial property, we pretty much decided that.
Well,
In our plan,
but this has to be industrial for it to be lumber yards.
And we actually, for our last one, we had that, our plan is for that all to go industrial.
yeah, it is going to go.
Right. Or, I mean, that's what we had discussed.
Right.
That's the purple right there.
Yeah, okay.
Because Real L has to be industrial because they have an industrial waste permit.
That's the way we're headed. We haven't done anything because we have to have the town hall, we have to have the citizen cities map before that can be completed. But that's the way that's what we have covered so far.
Right, and regardless of what it was covered, that's just fortuitous upon Bill's part. But the idea is you have to decide on how you're going to handle this new business coming in. Let's just say, get this wrapped up and we have it done by May. Great. Is it before the business goes in or after the business goes in? Don't know that. But if this thing goes on for another 5 years, we still haven't implemented this, do we have
We've been on it for a year. How long have you been on it?
less than you?
We've been on this for a long time, and it's getting irritating.
We got one more thing to do the residential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then we're ready to present it and see, get a town hall meeting on.
So I probably have forgotten something. Was this the only area that was going to be industrial? Were we going to make?
No, we got one.
We have to sign stuff.
That's all.
That's all.
But the question is how do you want to handle this? Do they need to file for a variance or zoning variance?
Yes, because we haven't changed, we have not changed the zoning yet. We can't arbitrarily allow someone to do something because we have a potential zoning map. We have to stay with the one, according to what we've been told from the administrative office, we have to use what we've got until one comes into play. So,
I agree. I just need I need y'all to state, because they need direction. And if we're going to need to file for a variance for it, then they need to submit a variance for the zoning. I would assume, as long as they do everything else that's required, the variance would go through just because it's following the future plans that we already have plus existing business, and that variance would be acceptable.
pretty easy. A lot easier than the streetscape.
Then I don't deny it. We'll talk about it again. So we agree they need to file for a variance for a zone.
Yes.
Okay. To industrial.
Yes.
I know they're still listening, so I know that they're getting this.
No, we're not doing it tonight.
No.
Yeah,
they're going to resubmit to that.
We're just discussing issues.
Now that you've already denied the variances and we're given direction on the next variance for zoning, is that one dead for tonight?
This one dead for tonight.
This issue, the
variance?
HVC issue topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Did it?
I was asking, making sure we didn't miss anything.
I hope we did. I wanna go back.
No. I think you're trying to leave me hanging up there. Laura saw me suffer and finally stepped up.
Oh, I've done a long time before.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, council, commission, now what we've done is we've gone through all of the, all the public meetings, and we have time left, and I would like to use it on our workshop for the zoning. So that we can try to get finished up this evening if possible, so that we'll be ready to, anything I know to do this. And y'all know what I'm doing. Everything I know that's left to do is to identify the residential 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything at 5. So we're going into workshop. Yes, we're going into workshop. Brian, did you know that?
Close the meeting.
I didn't hear you. You got to have a motion.
Next time. You only close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Actually, you need to have a motion to close the regular meeting and move to workshop.
Well, I hear a motion to close the regular meeting.
Give me city administrator over at City Hall. Or keep you confused about
Okay, so let's pull on that. Somebody's gonna have to. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. Thank you very much. Don't forget the meeting at the city council.
They're talking about zoning. Just going over the zoning map.
Everybody can say what we say. That's right. Now, I want to ask the commissioner, once we get this determined here for the R5, our 154, we have our R5. Can we have a public hearing that, and I'm thinking that once we do this, I'd like to have a public hearing with an open town hall type thing, where people can come in and try, would we be able to put the map, the old color map on one side, and then have on the other side just the residential ones where they can see that R1, R2, R3. Because we can't designate those on the map. And people need to know what those happen to be. Can we do
Well,
that?
I mean, we can also break it out. I mean, we can do different colors, and that's what I was about to start doing, breaking the buckets so that we can do that. So yes, you can do it where one of them just has residential, just like shown now. If it's got different colors of residential, yeah, I mean, we can do whatever.
Whatever y'all think, I just want to.
You have the hour for the public process.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to keep all green and do it different.
I don't think it'll,
You don't think it transfers on.
well, I don't think it'll let me do a hash mark on it.
Okay.
It won't do an intensity, but that's how transparent it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I do something?
No.
Yeah.
Are we looking at it?
I'm going guilty.
See, it's a map. You feel guilty?
Didn't do it. I turned around and you and Susan are looking at me like, did y'all ask me a question or what?
We wanted to do something, we weren't sure, we thought maybe we talked
Oh, no, yeah. Me and Martin don't ever talk about anything.
So are these people on?
They're still on. So y'all listen, technically they don't have to be, we can close them out, but I think Ray Don Kelly's still on and
about it. I don't remember hearing us talk about it.
so they may have an interest in it, so I'll leave it on there.
So we got R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5 to figure out.
And we pretty much have R5 pretty much
Yes, yeah, excuse me, we do have R5 done.
I think it's the R1, 2, 3 that we go,
And 4.
and 4, yes.
Yeah, the only thing that I was gonna go back and look at was, review apartments.
You know, we stuck them in, no, you have to look at. What do we do?
Multifamily?
Yeah. Some multifamily is still allowed in R5, though, right? Didn't we include some of it? Because where they were at?
Border houses or upstairs, apartments in commercial areas or something.
It's like,
We do multifamily, which is an R4.
no.
Multifamily is an R4. I'm reading it right here. in my-
Okay.
Which one do you want?
I'm reading it.
Which page you want?
I'm trying to read these lists.
Yes, we've got duplex, I think the quadplex is special, multifamily is special. But I think after like, no triplex is special, so you got duplex that's permitted in R5. That's what it was.
But you could have a special use permit for
For a triplex, a quadplex, multifamily, or.
So do me a favor, go back to the map and tell me what we proposed that area next to Chandler Street apartments across the street.
Okay, so.
Do that, yeah.
We just have it as residential as of now.
We didn't change that already?
We haven't broken it down any further.
The only reason I asked is because people are wanting to know, can I build duplexes there? Can I build triplexes there? Can I build more apartments there? Right across the street from, so that's the only reason I'm asking that. There's 15 different people have asked about it and called me about it.
You're talking about to the east of.
Across the Taylor house?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, knee locked up. Didn't expect it. Oh, there's property, so. Yeah, I said 5-something acres right across. And I think they called everything from putting retail in there to, can we put retail? Can we put office space? Can we put living above office space? Can we put apartments there? Can we put businesses there? Can we put townhomes there? I mean, it's just something every week is a new surprise.
It is, you are, no, hold on. This is you, right?
Yes,
So yes, we have it as R5.
okay, all the way down.
Yes.
And it even, so you didn't split the property there, so that even on the people that live, that's next door to me, it's all the way to the street. We didn't, because that's something that, that was time, I said, if the property is a property, it ought to go all the way.
They had a little commercial strip right along Blanco Avenue, and everything behind it was residential. But
It was a mixed use strip that covered right through the front half of your property, but it went all, it's mixed use all the way, wasn't it? It was a commercial.
They put it in commercial,
This commercial?
but it won't be anymore. I mean.
Shouldn't be like, I don't know how we got to that.
I don't know, but anyway.
Okay, so I say let's start with the bigger ones, let's start with R1, because those are gonna be the larger lots and things like that, and then whatever you're left with.
Okay, so-
end up being.
So the R1 is the low density residential, and intended to include, land subdivided for residential purposes and associated uses. The lots are generally large and may or may not be served by city infrastructure. It's intended to retain a rural character by having the potential for urban growth and increased density. These lots are typical from the city center. That's what the UDC.
With that, I'd say basically everything over here would stay the R1.
Uh-huh.
And then as we go over here, probably, or sorry, over here being R1.
Yes.
So what R1 include?
Well, I'm about to drag it in there, so yeah, we'll keep R1 as the dark blue. And
Okay.
also change the others.
So we'll just change the others and leave that one as is, as we go through them, that will leave those areas.
Right, or I'm gonna be trying to pull them into there.
watching you do this. It makes it so easy. If we went for try, we would just be pulling our hair out. He's just dragging us right through his hair.
I think probably they need to cancel.
This
Oh,
Where is that? That is across the bridge, by.
It's behind the big factory.
Yeah. I don't think so too.
Well, we get all done with this. I'm hoping if we can put
It's
it
almost
back
like a
on
farm.
the wall. Actually, it's very hard, so we can see that.
All right.
Come back on the R2.
We can change them, but I was gonna, basically everything this way, I was gonna put into R1.
Okay. And we can always go back.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just thinking about, my neighborhood is R2, so
You can make that master so we can hear you. What'd you say?
my area is R2.
Medium density?
So,
It's not R3?
okay, oh.
Morris, where do you live?
Over there, I see all the, you see all the, is that R2?
I don't know, there's all the or going back to all stuff.
Here, I have the code now.
Oh, but that's had either, it's
Okay.
just residential on there.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm saying we've never been able to see the R1, R2, R3.
So, okay, so what do we have as the definition
The medium density is intended to include land subdivided for residential purposes and associated uses. The mid-sized lots allow for denser development and are generally served by public infrastructure. Medium density lots provide further options for housing and neighborhood development in the city of Waco.
of? Where is, do you know where that density chart is? No.
I don't know.
So the unit operator and all that, yeah, we.
Well, I believe R3 is 6,500, right?
Oh.
But that's the only one I see.
Can't remember the wrong one. The density chart, I'm looking at the thousand times, somebody else probably told me that.
Scrolling.
He's looking for.
You can read.
No, I'm looking for. Yes, I can.
Would be nice if it was on the front.
Okay, page 170, section 5.4 lot
Page
standards.
170.
That's the lot standards, but that's.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
So two,
Oh, yeah, that's it.
residential 2 is 3 units per acre, 11,000 square feet.
Okay, so R2 is a 3 inch acres, so yeah, you're a little under a third acre lots. And that is the size of it there. So that would coincide with all those.
So we're saying that R2 is like a third of an acre,
Yes.
that's 3 units per acre. And that even makes it more clear when we look at this chart, because R1 is 1 acre. And then R2 is 3 acres per unit. And then we jump to R5 in a minute, and that's going to be, R3, that's going to be 5 acres. So, 5 units per acre. Okay, so where are you putting it, R2, okay? Is that what you're doing there?
Yes, Yeah, all these in the yard codes, they're all that they're made criteria.
Has past garden oaks in our ETJ or in our?
Our ETJ is like this.
Something for the elementary school. I mean, the middle school.
There's your ETJ.
So should we be considering that property too? Or is it?
No, only in the city limits as far as zoning.
Okay. So the city limits in.
Yeah. They're the city limits.
Oh, yeah.
So you just bring them a different color.
Yeah, I'm gonna drag and change their property in a second.
We're trying to match what the once we do this, I mean, we are ready then, we just take a brief overview of everybody and then we're ready to present it to, citizens in some fashion. And I'll get with, as far as y'all, I'll get with the administrative office and see what we can fill up. And then let y'all know, see if we can get a date set up, so we can have, and now that look at it, we can have, I'd like to see town hall.
I'm sure you can use different ones. I feel like the board is okay, then that's the facility that we have in the board that for people who don't want to come, the sound is really good. Everybody's going to be fine.
And there's lots of room. And Trey is so good at what they can just put it out. So that we can have one map that has everything and one map that has the residential, which is really.
We have to drop in.
I think it'll be, I really want to have a town hall. And to let everyone have an opportunity before we ever have a public hearing at a town hall. And let everybody have their input, and we can look at it again and take their input and have, you know, a conversation. Well, I don't know. I have to talk to the administration and see. I like to do it as quickly as we can, because I think that it's been going on for so long. As soon as we get finished, you know, yeah, I'm for it.
No, you wanted to have an additional workshop.
I did, and then everything kind of fell apart because of the, and we're having it now, which is.
So we're having it now.
Yeah.
The room I've got is going on to.
The red. The red color.
Yeah.
I think the red for room. Okay. And we have R1 is blue, didn't we?
Yes, well, it's just turned off right now. We still have all the items blue as well.
Okay.
But yes, R1 will be blue when we're done.
So, are you ready to look at R3, or do you have all the R2s in there?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is there anywhere else we need to do R2 over against the river over here, or, do I need to break out some of these?
Okay, now remember R2, folks, so we're talking about this, some of y'all know that, but R2 is a medium density, which means that you can have 3 acres per unit. And is intended to include land subdivided for residential purposes. That's R2, 3 acres per unit.
3 units.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
But where else in town is there a larger lot?
Maybe there's some of these vacant land areas, which some of these are coming before us.
Yeah, isn't the Los Altos?
Yes, Los Altos is,
That's a PPD, right?
I think this one.
It's between 13, that's 11 and 13.
Well, that PDD was on floor.
Oh, yeah, it's this one, that's right.
Yeah.
That's on floor. That's 20 acres per unit, isn't that? I mean, 20 units per acre.
That seems like a huge jump from 5 units an acre to 20 units.
That was a lot line housing district.
That's huge.
And how many units within that, do you know?
But that's Los Altos.
22?
There's only
22.
24.
Very much 22. Yeah.
But you adjusted the sizes to meet the criteria.
They did.
No.
Yes, make it 6,500. As he put in the sidewalk, he put in parks, and he put in two exits.
Well, he did a lot. I don't know how you got, I mean, you still have to make that, you would have to be, it's more than 5 acres per, 5 units per acre, isn't it? What was
Well,
that?
it's 4 acres, and 5 acres, 20 units.
Well, see, they did the PED, so it's its own zone.
So what color are you going to make it?
It strikes as.
I mean, it may be a PDD, but you know, we still have to make it, one of these R numbers before.
I mean, wasn't that the whole thing, was to get it to each of those lots to around 6,500?
Yeah.
So we make them R3.
Yes, so yeah, but then it's whatever, because it shouldn't, I don't think, we'll have to check with Joe, but I don't think it would have to affect the PED.
I don't think so. I mean, PDD was just the development, just what we were gonna get out of the deal.
Right.
They were gonna provide.
They're asking for variances and then we get, whatever else.
If I say the PDD, it's to make it a unique.
See, that's the way I feel about this other thing. Yeah. Possibly we should have a PDD, but some, yeah.
And they may come back with it, but yeah, there's, I mean, they can come back with that, but I don't think that the variances was just a easy, no.
Yeah.
Well, there was no one.
But see, we're doing the variance.
Oh, it's already in the slopes, yeah, you know. Building stuff.
We're doing variances right and left for some of these housing.
And also just, I know I don't have a business thing, but this is our chance. You can't really look at our density here. And so thinking about water, I'm all about the water. Thinking about water and open spaces, the more areas that you allow for really big density development, it's fine to have an apartment complex, to have 1 or 2 areas where there might be density, but what developers want, they want that density. And that density kills us in infrastructure, in water, and we don't, as a city, get any money out of it, and you get that tight suburban impact, lots of people talk about my house to each other. So it's a nice opportunity to arrange for housing, but, you know.
We have in the comprehensive master plan update, the citizens want a variety. So we did one lot line place where we can have a lower house cost and a place where you can have elderly people that don't want to take care of their well. Doesn't mean you're gonna have it all over the city. Right. And it was the PDD. So I'm still not, I'm happy that it's there. I'm glad the other one did not pass, but I think it was at the end.
Which one?
The one next to the station.
Oh.
I'm glad that did not go through.
Why did you think it was a travesty after the Los Altos?
Well, because the Los Altos was specific set up with a home, and it was a 0 lot line. But the homeowners association, it was a small area, and it was specific. I mean, we needed some senior type housing. But once we did that, like I said, I don't know if we need that kind of housing all over the country.
That's the way I
And the thing is, you have, it could be unique, so we could do it.
I don't think that it was a bad deal, but I wouldn't want to see it multiplied.
We also did not know about the money.
Right, we didn't know that.
And now the money,
But even with that, when you still need to see somebody couldn't have to take it. And young business people that don't have time and money to take care of the yard, they're going to buy that kind of house. And so that wasn't, I don't think that was a bad thing, just me. I don't think that was a bad deal. I just don't want to multiple. I wouldn't want to see it multiple.
Well, it was zero lot.
It was zero lot line, that's right, and it had home ownership. So we had an HOA to keep it up.
and they put in sidewalks, and they put in a park, and they had two bedrooms.
He didn't do it.
And we did, and they had porches, they showed us those homes, they would have the front porches where they could sit on the front porch, and it was a community type style development, so I still don't think it would be a bad deal, but I wouldn't want to see it. I mean,
No,
it just
it was an attempt to try it out, to satisfy that request. The small places to live.
But I think our freeze.
And there, whereas on the other one, and where there was no HOA, we gave them variances that we probably shouldn't have given them for smaller streets, more narrow streets. They didn't have a carport or a garage. You couldn't get to the back of those properties. And there was a lot of bad
We
stuff.
tried to cover our lawn, no certain.
It's a lot of bad stuff.
But otherwise. That city council turned it down.
The trees.
And the trees, right.
And the trees were issues.
There was such an issue.
Other than that, this is when they accomplish the plan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that?
It's just, what this guy I worked with, anytime something bad would happen, he would say, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Sorry, what I've been doing, I broke out Calvin Meadows and another subdivision to be R3s. I went ahead and carried the R3 up to 1623. I don't know if y'all.
Good, yeah, so we don't have spots coming in there.
And then I was gonna, these are kind of that R2 range. Do that, carry that as R2 or carry R3?
What do you think, Mike? I think that it doesn't hurt to have some R2s in there. We don't have.
Where is this?
Right there.
Mesquite Street?
Oh, so this is next to Calvin.
Yes, Calvin is right here.
Yeah, I don't know what they, yeah.
Yeah, it's houses that. They've got some pretty good size.
I'm sure somebody's gonna want to come put another Calvin Meadows in there.
We'll have to get.
They should.
I don't care.
That's already.
We want to try to keep it. Sure. And so putting some R2s in amongst that.
That's it. It would be probably on city utilities anyway, so that would make it part of our food.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, because if you look at the rest of that along there, those are, like larger, like where the Gosnells live in there and Bruce, former Mayor Bruce, they all live. Those are nice.
Yeah.
Those are nice size.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, those are large.
Right.
Go back.
So you're saying that's all on?
Yes, blue is our one.
Okay.
And what is the green? Is that the R3?
Yes.
And that's a pool there, right?
Correct. Then, all right, what about this?
That's the,
This is where
Martha.
we've got similar.
It's across the street from what we've done, the RT across the street.
Right, they get a little dense or somewhat, I don't know if that's all.
I'll be interested to know what they're.
Okay, so there's the parcel lines. So they break down pretty small.
Well, Fort Martin and MR, that definitely has to be an R1, doesn't it?
I think so.
It I mean, it's all about future use too, whatever you're thinking. So, you know,
He's never gonna sell.
right, and I mean, that's fine.
And he said he wouldn't until they could, till they had to have a walker in.
So, I mean,
Oh, where's all, I'm sorry, I know. But like the development stuff, that.
We took it all off except for residential, just so we could do the all, and then we'll go back and do that. Now, I'm thinking he has over here on the far side of the high school.
What about?
Pretty good stuff. You know, they were-
now that,
So that's.
I think that is R3. If you drive through there though,
Some of those parcels are bigger than 6,500 square feet.
oh.
You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I think some of those,
Right, but they're not hitting the next threshold though.
okay,
They're not hitting the third acre.
okay, so that's where you are. All right.
Or you make more,
So green is gonna be an R3.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, because those are about 10 by 80.
So they have been. It's not like I could do math.
8,800 square feet.
B plus B is 22.
So yeah, that's 24 acre lots.
Well, back over where, Martha is right now and all that, what do you suspect now, they're by the river, I think we have to be careful about, we're going to live by the river, what are we going to do that, right there, across the river road?
Right, but that's all park, so they don't have anything that actually touches the river.
Right.
But these are all, that may be a third.
And don't forget the Josie's and some of those other places right along by the church here, yeah.
Yeah, so that's almost 3/4 of an acre, 70 cents. So those could go to R2. I mean, some people threshold could be an R1, that one unit per acre. But
I'm going to definitely have a plan. If you tell her something, you'd love to go in there, you know.
Right, what do you think, Boris?
I mean, I'm kind of thinking R2 or.
Well, I'm thinking R2 as well.
Because I think that has to go to R3.
Because that's the mayor's up there behind the church.
Yeah, that's right.
it's mentioned that one large area, right there. How are you going to develop it?
Very careful.
Because I'm looking at access to
I'm
it.
gonna have, well, someone has to give them access.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's.
Well, you got it over there. I mean, it apparently belongs to that house on the corner.
But it could have been the Lord's, that's the Lord's property there, that passed away. And I know that they had this big lot back there that they had to get taken care of, but.
Yeah, but it's not landlocked, right?
See, that one would have to go,
Yeah.
that one would have to go this way, probably.
What are the dimensions? How big is that one?
But even here, if we're maybe ready to develop that, you could bring this road this way, just like they have. So they, everybody along this property line get access, because you have to have access to get in that. So they could get access to go this way, and that still could be pretty good size.
Well, they would have their access right here. If we just built it right over.
Right, if they allow them to do that, right.
Well, I think this is all owned by the same people.
Yeah, it's all in there, so but you just have to get them up to landlocked.
And if they did sell, they have that big piece and they sell their country, as long as they gave them access and they did the deal with the seller, they would still be okay. Just be a
I
road.
think those are too, I think, personally. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing with R2 is that some of those could technically subdivide.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be an acre, so you could end up with 3 houses on there.
Which puts it
That would be an R2 threshold.
Yeah, I think the R2, I really like.
Yeah, I mean, this is more on the interior of our city, so it's in that same logic.
Right.
It's conceivably nobody would put in one house. You would do something else with it.
And like the, Martha's Park back there, somebody bought that, they either gonna buy the whole thing and do the hay deal like they're doing, or they're gonna split it right there on the north side of it and put the house over on the other side, you know. So they could do it anyway, but it still would be like an R2 at least, wouldn't it?
I'm thinking they probably want to put apartments in them.
Well, I mean, we could identify it as, I mean, if that,
I wouldn't want to, but I think that would be, you've got a piece of land that size with several different streets to open out onto. And a couple of levels up, you get a view of the river. I mean, that's perfect for apartments, isn't it? It's a lovely senior, any kind of living place, wouldn't it? So I think it should be R1 for now, right?
are we gonna keep this as R1, because that can still be, I mean, that can still be subdivided into.
Why don't we make it R1 and that way if they want to do one of these others, then I have to come before us. Then we can have some, then we can monitor what goes in, right?
Well, I mean, I mean, it's gonna go, we're gonna have a public hearing. But, you know, are we gonna let people just come and demand what they want?
Well,
We're gonna have to take all the input and then come back. Yeah, the town hall, because you can't have one person say, well, I want my property this. We're gonna have to look at what's around them, but we do need to get the input and look have to look at it.
So basically, we're gonna be doing it again.
Well,
not to this extent.
Well,
It should just be a touch-up.
yeah.
But I think typically, most people, I think like, especially people like in the Garden Oaks area, they're there and they're not.
and they're happy.
Yeah, they're more or less, they're gonna be identified as what they own.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the businesses that are gonna have the most outcry.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, there'll be places that businesses will end up coming in and parking allowed for some of those things. But there's lots and lots of density of people, and it's hard to provide infrastructure and services.
Yeah.
High density. And somebody will always want to build there. The developer can see 9 to 40 million places in the corner, they'll love it. This is important.
I'm just afraid we're gonna have a building moratorium if they build out the mud faster than we're ready for it to.
Well, I think when you look at this map a little later, once you get this done and look at it, we're going to see a lot of R5, which is what we're talking about, where you can have the businesses alongside various houses. R5 is for, we're gonna see a big part of that map.
The truth of the matter, where I live, I shouldn't go out.
So everything in
My
yellow,
house
that's-
is here.
Everything in yellow is an R5, so that is open for a business to come in there.
Yeah.
But we're going to softer business, it's not like they're residents and, as opposed to factory.
But then I think when we look at that, we also have to remember that we do want residential areas and not for R5. We want, as they have commercial, we want residential, so that when people buy a property and put their time and effort and money into it, that they don't have to be concerned about a business being up next to them. That's kind of where we are, isn't it?
Right, it's not like yeah.
But I think anybody who lives in the downtown area, should be prepared for the change.
Oh, I agree. I mean, like I said, I shouldn't be able, looking back now, I've been there for 10, 11 years. But the truth is, the street that is residential there right now, it really shouldn't be residential. It should be open onto Town Creek for restaurants with outdoor dining.
And it
little
probably will
shops.
be in a few years.
Yeah.
And when are we gonna start pumping water into Town Creek? We need to start pumping water. We have our own little river.
jackhammer that culvert that makes the erosion come under 281. I'll do that, get the jackhammer and right there. I'll be all.
Well, if you know what we do, we need to let the kids have one more skateboard sweep now. I should have read you this work this like right on.
It's great, I used to get home. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you all are working on that.
I'm working on that.
So these are kind of the same third acre, I'm gonna start flipping these into there.
Yeah, this is where.
Okay,
it's on the other side of Herdens.
yes.
Yeah, those houses in there, look at them. They're,
Look at,
They're kind of,
these are about that third acre size. That one's gonna be a little smaller, but, so I guess. Yeah, do we go R2, do we go R3? Now we're on one of the bigger highways.
I would say, wait. Because we could put, we have, basically, it's what they're doing on 13th Street, they're having those smaller houses being built along the road there. Although, no, but maybe R2, more than 1,000 square feet. You said they're how big are
The closer you get to the street, the more density you're going to have.
well, some of those. Those businesses.
Some are, or some of them, there's a house.
Right.
Right?
This is gonna be in R5, I'm sure.
Yeah, that, see, there's the doctor's office and Oregon insurance and real estate.
And those are.
So it's still residential where all those businesses and commercial things belong.
When it's R5, you can have any businesses that are compatible with the residential area. So we would not have a lumber yard or that kind of thing.
Right, you can have childcare, office type of.
It's a mix. And what happened when we did that, the MX was you started with corporate and when you couldn't go down. The R5 said we were going to start with residential and let it build up if it's compatible with residential. That's the way that happened.
We thought it would be a softer divide between hard schools, commercial, or interconnection.
It kind of made the buffer, yeah, between residential and commercial, so we can have that.
So, remember, it's gonna be blue, right?
Yes, I don't have that one on.
Oh, I see.
Because the other blues are ones we haven't touched yet.
Yeah.
Got it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm working my way out.
Working on it.
Yeah. Okay, let me do this.
Oh, don't do it for me.
Well, I mean, that way it's good for everybody, so
Some of us are.
like we were ones we still.
And the I-Corp is what?
That's the one we still need to do.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, got it.
okay.
Like dogs on marble.
And now kind of mixture on five and some of them gotten down that probably are three size. And it's getting closer in, I mean, does all of that go to R3 or do we want to try to?
Yeah, R3, did y'all read that? R3 says it's a high density residential intended to provide defensive residential development that is appropriate for Blanco. Smaller lots are intended to encourage a variety of housing options, including affordable housing and duplex development under certain conditions.
That's R3.
That's R3.
You know, some people.
That's 0.18 acres on these.
What streets are we on here?
That is 7th and mesquite, cherry.
Oh, I see where you are.
One of the homes in there too are former, I don't want to say mobile homes, but they're some sort of a home you can drive in.
Some of these, you know, like, one of these here, look at that, it's all crammed in there together. And this house right here, wait, those are two separate houses, two separate lines. Right there, it should be divided right there.
Some of these parcel line, I mean, this is what we got from the county, but it's not the greatest.
Because that guy who owns that house, that's some kind of a, I'm not sure what that is. These are rentals in here.
Well, that would pretty much be a R3 then, wouldn't it?
And there are like 3 or 4 rentals right in here.
Encouraging duplex development, certain types of options, affordable housing, which would be rental houses.
I'm thinking almost anything that's got those little hodgepodge squares all throughout here.
Make it accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Thanks, good. I'm just glad to see that we're splitting this up because we have a variety of housing types throughout the city.
I mean, a lot of folks still want to keep the quarter acre homesteads, but sometimes it just doesn't lend itself to maintaining that structure.
Well,
What's your contractor? You agree with this?
I think all of these are like normal, I don't know what size, I think they're normal size lots, like over here on Cedar Street. I don't think they're.
That's mine. One, 2 seconds, so yeah, they're still in that R3 range.
They all.
Yeah, the R3 would have to be a third of an acre.
Okay. Isn't it funny how some of the lots are bigger than other lots? So, that's strange.
Somebody got lucky. Got a little bigger lot. Or maybe they bought 2 lots at one time.
Well, I don't know, you know, I was walking my dog the other day, and I was talking to this guy, talking about his yard, and everybody in elementary school, he said, well, that's only part of my yard, part of it's hers. And I said, and he said, when we surveyed everything out, my yard extended over into her, and my fence line and all of that. And she's just gonna grid it the way we did that way for now. You know, she doesn't care. But
Well, there are places on the west side of San Antonio that people have built, he had this lot, but it wasn't his. It was the person who lived in it.
Yeah,
And then-
Sharon Hills was that the whole developer screwed up and everything was off kilter, the whole subdivision, right? I forgot about that. That was a mess. Done now.
Is everybody going to stay on the commission this year? Are you staying?
The answer is yes to Trey.
Are you staying for another couple of years?
don't let them stand for a couple.
We can get this thing tackled and done with, then
You're out.
I'll stay.
You will stay, but if not, you're not staying.
It's been dragging on for a long time.
I'm not gonna stay for a couple of years. Probably stay.
Another year. So we're staying. We don't know about you yet. You may or may not, right? So, but at least you've got 4 hours, at least for the next year, kind of thing, or longer, so. I just want to make sure that we get it out there so that if we're going to have to put people in, that we would have them coming in and not be down to, you know.
Yeah.
And we have to follow those restrictions. Some for inside the county, some for inside the city.
Yeah, right.
That's a required mix, so we have to.
No, it isn't a required mix, it's what we can allow, right?
That's right, it's allowable.
It's an allowable, it's not a requirement.
So you could have everybody could be citizens of Blanco city limits. But if you can't, but you're allowed to have two that for different reasons are outside. I think Trey fits one of those, and didn't RK fit the other one?
Yeah.
So you have an empty seat. You just only have one empty seat, right?
Yeah.
That's the only one, right?
Unless you do, unless we lose one. Unless we lose.
Well, are y'all going to go ahead and promote the one seat now to try to fill?
Yes, that's why I think that, RK sent you a letter.
I got it, but I hadn't talked to you about it since I got the letter.
We need to put, word out there if we need to.
Okay. Do you want me to put it? Well, let's talk tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
I'm just trying to get a.
What is tomorrow, Tuesday? Yeah, we'll talk tomorrow, see how we want to put it out there.
See, that's why I said, RK got me to come on, because we were down to, I think, maybe 4 or 3. We had a hard time getting a
Way
car.
down there.
Yeah, we had a hard time getting a car, so he said,
Okay, so for the council, to clarify, for the council, 3 must reside inside the city limits of the ETJ. 2 may reside outside the city if they own a business or are employed within the city limits. And 2 may reside outside the city limits of ETJ, period. Let's go that way.
But the must.
I had to do that to put it in here so that I can. I mean, that takes about 3 paragraphs, but that's what it boils down to.
Should this one can fit the R2. This one, we've got them mixed in there, they're not R2 size.
Let's mix them up. That will be an R3 that you have right there.
I think this would be R3.
Okay.
And then, well,
Okay,
I think maybe this corner could go R2.
Okay.
All that. Get some water.
Okay, so the corners R2, and then the next little section is R3, and then we still have to worry about that other section. I was going to do that. I'm just being crazy, Brian. Well, Craig said that he's getting kind of tired of it. We started this last March. That's how long we've been working with this stuff. So we walked the streets, we counted the houses. I mean, we have been all over Blanco to try to determine what was out there, not just what was on the map.
Because when I started covering the paper, y'all were starting to.
Yeah.
But we got really serious.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In March. I mean, it's just something that needed to be done, but it's very difficult. I mean, when you say, well, it's been a year, but then when you think about it, you have a couple of 3 or 4 hours a month that you're working on. And so, you know, and then we did a lot of extra stuff because it's a long-term event. I mean, what we do here is going to have impact. So we have to be careful. And thank goodness I've had a great group here that has knowledge that we're involved and interested in doing it.
Can I bring up a source subject? What about the bug? What about the bug?
It's the council, they're supposed to make that.
Jurisdiction, right? Because it's in the ETJ.
Well, no, you have jurisdiction over standards that have the ability,
Oh.
things like that. far as like zoning is not a deal.
Yeah.
Or direct.
That's correct. We can't zone the ETJ, but we can hold them to building standards and
So they don't
development.
have zoning at all.
No zoning.
Well, not now.
No, not now.
Someday when they're in the city, they will.
Yeah. Well, so that's all further planning, but if we did a development agreement with them and all that was negotiated right, once the mud was paid for, it'd be written as such that once the mud was paid for and they know they paid off all their bonds, it would be an automatic annexation, not a voluntary. It could be written that way. Doesn't mean we're going to get it that way. It could be written that way.
We can't automatically get it, so they have to automatically reach the annex, correct?
Well, it could be terms of the mud. Now, if we don't put those terms in the mud, then it falls back to state regulations, which is a voluntary annexation. But if we get it, we're able to negotiate it into the development agreement with the mud, then it could be stated that once it's paid off, they've paid all their debts, it could be an automatic annexation.
I hope we raise my point.
We have to. That's not even an option. Yeah.
And they're gonna be building in phases.
Yes. Well, right now, I don't have my written notes on it with me, but right now they are revising the concept plan. They are revising the concept plan. Did you listen to the meeting at the council meeting? I've tried to address all this. They're revising the concept plan right now.
What meeting was this?
The council. I'll take
Which one? The last one? I was there.
Don't listen.
What they do in, yeah, it was asked, I listened. So,
Yes, okay, I got this.
so on the mud, they've gone back to that concept plan was done like in 2014 or 2015 by Commission. They've gone back to their new concept for land development engineers. They're having concept revised, which is definitely they have their civil utility engineer evaluating all of their possible options for water research. And once the concept plan is complete, they'll marry that with the utilities plan, and then they'll come back to the city to negotiate some agreeable terms to develop. They have not gone to TCEQ yet. They will not go to TCEQ until after, because they still have a lot of time on the clock. And they'll come back and try to get some meaningful agreement with the city to tell you something that we all can get along with. It's not stopping anything. I don't think there's anything we can do to stop it.
If you're just, but what I was having for some sort of phase development, so that they have to stop building at some point and let the infrastructure catch up. When they build out some more, and the infrastructure catches up, otherwise they have to move away from the water.
Well, okay, so you're talking in terms of utility. So yes, there would be, obviously they're going to build in phases anyway, but those phases water. CCEQ along with us, if we negotiate with them, will determine that, hey, this phase requires this many gallons of water per day. The city can produce this many, so you're raising those rates.
So they did.
No, just it's not been determined yet, it's in that process. So that's what we'll be negotiating, because they'll put down and say, okay, ultimately, the entire community needs a 500,000 gallon source of water. In order to get that, they're gonna have to build it just for their community. Now, if we're supplying water, it's gonna be just for their community, which is give them a day and a half. Give them almost 2 days of water. So that if any, wherever their source is, if it's coming from us, if it's coming from the well, wherever it's coming from, they've gotta have that much. The city will get a 500,000. Yeah, that requires more retaining of river water, say it's a well, whatever the case may be, they would have to develop that for the city, if the city doesn't stop the water. So if we need to get more water retainage out of the river, then they're gonna have to build additional dam. They're gonna build an additional dam, they're gonna build a reservoir. And that's gonna be on them. That's not on us to do. They want our water. It seems like it's a life. They're gonna have to pay for that infrastructure. And that means we need a well like Rockland's Jay's got, it's a 600,000 gallons, 600 gallons per second. I mean, well, then they'll have to pay for drilling that, so which would be $250,000, $300,000. If that's what it's going to be on the city, but they'll be paying for it. And it only increases our, the idea is not to take away what we have. Right now, we will supply the city with what we have. Anything else that they're going to do, that's why the NTTEQ will support that. Again, I personally think that we have to negotiate, because if development comes to Spring Ranch and they keep closing the gap together and building Chili's, and there's a whole lot of people that sit on commercial real estate that are waiting to sell it. I would rather control the water. I would rather than people like Rock and Jay be able to take whatever they want, put it on a golf course and everything else. So at the end of the day, we are obligated to own that water. We're obligated.
And that's how I was.
That's the most responsible thing we can do.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Oh, absolutely. That is not a question whatsoever.
I think, I mean, I've heard these horror stories of Rock and Jay, how much water they're taking out of the ground. And just, you know, there's no control over it. And I think one of those doesn't be.
Well, the flip side of that is in, hang on.
We close there our meeting tonight on the internet.
Where are you now?
Like it.
Cemetery, you know, that place is right there in the river.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just going through and.
I thought I was seeing my 65 there.
I was going in line.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, let's.
Now, you got this on Google Maps, can we go look at it?
It's Google Earth, but I can send it a file to it, and as long as you have Google Earth downloaded, it'll pull up this.
And how do you get all of the once you just.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you just turn it on or all these, on the left, that's all, that's just, you can turn it on, you can delete it, and then, yeah, so it keeps all your, all of the side.
Okay, so, can we turn it back off, or can we go over and get your email?
Yeah, I mean, you can turn them off, and then once you have it on your computer, it'll if you close, the last thing you want to save it, just save it in the file. So whenever you open it back up, it'll also.
Yeah, so it's there, well, I've been in there a lot, then one will come in and say, well, I'm just doing this. What's all that color? Look about the bed, so if I need the email, I can delete that, check it off, and then I can tell you email.
Yeah.
I just make sure copies in case I accidentally leave one. Well, you think that's one turned on. When did you work today?
No,
I saw you. Yeah. It's pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
He's a home run.
I think it's on. Could be that.
I mean, now
All right, Commissioners. We're really close, Commissioners. He's almost got everything in.
How's it going? All right, thank you.
Okay, so
We get the electric bill?
okay, so all we're sitting there is the residential, right? You took everything else out. There. Okay, so that looks pretty good, doesn't it? I mean, we've got a lot of things in there.
It does
So
look
it's not
pretty
like that we just broad brush a particular part. And what we want is to make it around town, and it's something that, okay, so it's happening. Okay, so the green is R3. And then the rear of the green is R2. And then the R1 is the blue. R4. And the R4.
R4 is now the light blue.
The light blue, okay, which is what I have.
Yes.
Ask you to get the clocks on up by the church library. Or five, I mean, the houses there, they got, we got.
Okay.
And then there was some off the green one, right? Or where the two trucks.
Yes, we got.
Okay, great. Good job. We've been working on it, chatting.
So do y'all want to let him download this to us? and we can look at it on our computers at home. And then, see if we can't call another meeting sometime April, mid-April. And we can come back together and make sure everything is good, and I want to get with Will and see if we get town hall going to get this.
Well, it'll be a public hearing that will be open as a town hall. It'll be
I don't
operated.
hear what you call it.
I gotta post it as a public
Everybody
hearing, and then we can conduct it as a town hall, which will need to be in a different setting.
And we'll see if we can do it out of German Hill, so that we can have a lot of people out.
And how can we just get the word out?
And what I'd like to do is make sure that we can have, like, if Trey puts one slide up that has just everything, and then the other one up that has just the residential, so that people can go look at that. It's not interested in business and stuff. They will go for the residential. What do you think?
I think y'all have one that shows everything.
Yeah, one that shows everything, but one that shows just residential.
Well, you will have a residential on that everything, so.
But you can't have all the colors, can you? If you pick them?
We can break it out, kind of, the problem is having the more distinct color breaks, so that people can recognize, so that, for instance, now we have red for commercial and maroon for R2, so it could get confusing.
But when you put it up on one big map, it has everything on it, but then it has one map over here that just has residential on it. Then people can begin to get a feel from going back and forth to the map.
Now, see, here's your problem. No, here's your obstacle to overcome. Is the map is beautiful and it does a great deal. What has to be done is explain to everyone. I mean, everyone getting to be able to understand what are commercial and industrial, what the difference. I know we've got it written out, but just because we've got it written out and we stick it in their hands does not mean they actually read it. So that's where we've got to.
Well, we'll have
So
to read
that's
it.
intellectual, we'll have to have kind of.
Right.
Presentation.
Yeah, it has to be a presentation. There'll also have to be a lot of redundancy questions to answer.
We're all.
Long as right over here.
Yeah.
Put them on.
But all the commissioners will be there, and hopefully we'll all be answering some questions. Now, I'm going to see it, folks, it's 7. The first one, everybody comes. We're going to have to take those answers back and those questions, and we're going to have to go over and sit down here as a group again and look at what we've done. And then we'll probably have a couple more before we actually vote on sending this to, don't you think?
No.
So,
Well, if people have an issue, well, okay, so we twofold, I mean, yes, we could take everything and come back to it, or we do it. If it's a valid change to what we've come up with, we do it then.
that's true, but I think we have to be very careful that we don't have a person making changes and then somebody else will make their change. I want you to see my change.
Yeah, I can get that.
I mean, you're gonna get that, and you're gonna get that a lot. And so if we take everybody's input and then bring it back and take a look at it, I think that you start changing the map when you're there.
No, absolutely not. No, you're right. Take all the suggestions, come back here. And when you go through those, you have someone that says, well, I wanted this to be R5. You also got to be prepared for making that note of who wanted that, so you're prepared when you go back to tell them why it couldn't be. Right.
And if it is, because if we change one, we will probably change more than one. I doubt that we're gonna go in the middle of here and just change one piece.
Well, I think we need to say also, we're gonna be the final determinant on it. And that we might not be able to make your change. Yeah, I mean, we're responsible for the final product as opposed to, again, it's but these individual people that are making the suggestions, that's fun. It gives us an idea, but we're not gonna take this one.
No, but I'm just saying, we need to listen to everybody so that everybody has an opportunity, but then we need to bring them back here.
Right.
As a commission, we discuss what we heard, and each of us will hear something different. We're each going to hear something different from a lot of these people. But as a group, then we can come back and make the determination.
But as important as it is to do the work,
You come back here is to think about all the hypothetical questions that are gonna be asked, so. And those are things like, say, Mabel with the liquor store says, well, now if I'm about to get this done, I'm fixing to sell this, and they want to turn it back into residential, but y'all made it commercial. What's the process? What do I do?
And also, plus, taxes, and what do they sell?
Oh.
So, I mean, we.
That was nothing to do with, yeah, nothing to do with tax, that's all.
Exactly, the point is, if we do this, it should be notified the county, because some of their categories are so different.
They identified on what it, or without the taxable use of it.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah, there is no impact, there is no correlation whatsoever. I've been down that road.
It's not going to be easy, but we have to do that. We're gonna have to put ourselves out there, we're gonna listen to them. We're gonna tell them that we can't make a decision, we want to hear the input, and then we will get back to where we are, and we'll have another town hall.
You're right about all of that, and all the things we didn't thought about.
So, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough, but we can do this. We got this down, we understand what we're after.
Well, I think one of the big things that they're gonna have to understand is their properties are already being taxed. I think, as you just said, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, this is not gonna change anything, so they have to understand.
It's kind
And
of
the
like,
county is the major,
it's like the comprehensive master plan, we didn't change a thing. Understand, we didn't change anything.
yeah.
It's like the property value, we're not changing that. You're actually maintaining the original concept.
But, I mean, this isn't gonna affect city taxes at all.
Martin?
By zoning?
Yeah.
Because the county wants to call it that bump of rezone of, the commercial versus residential. Our tax rate is 0.35.
No.
We lowered it this year. Not bad for everybody.
Oh, let's go back up next year.
Yes, it will. No, I mean, I heard. The idea is not to raise taxes, it's to raise the value of the property that's taxable. And so,
You raise the taxes.
you generate more revenue. Yeah. That's the idea, so. Empty piece of land is not worth as much to us as it is.
I don't think we have. See, we got.
But a piece of land with a house on becomes valuable to us.
What do you think? What do you think about creating a handout, but do it electronic? Anybody that wants to come, they read the information, they can download onto their phone, the legend, and color scheme, and that way we don't have to use paper.
Exactly. I love the idea, but if that would work, I wouldn't have 30 color copies of the comprehensive master plan in the print. Even though we've offered, I need a hard copy. I wish it would work. Now, we passed an ordinance that we can only make 3 copies per day or per year or whatever, insert paper. That'd be nice. We make a lot.
What would be cool is if there was a search engine for the BBC, so that, you can key in what, I mean, and at least come up with,
There will
you
be
can find the words.
Yeah, search the word.
Search the word search, please.
There will be eventually, but that costs money.
You can research the electronic version that, what's it made of?
Lori, yeah.
I just got pasted on the document so I can research it.
That's what it needs to be more user friendly on the website.
I think she's working on the index too, so she's sort of more clear about what's going in there. I think Lauren told me.
Yeah, she is. Well, the index isn't exactly.
I thought she was working on it.
She is. We need the primary and the subcategory to go with See, because it's somewhat misleading and the index.
It's not very good right now, but it's something, it's better than nothing.
Well, look, it narrows it, when you're 300 pages, you narrow it down to 150. So,
Okay, folks.
are we done?
We will take on it. All right.
Absolutely. Kicking everybody off here.
Quick announcement, we all leave on the 26th, which is a Friday. You already know the